The Houston Astros are off to the best start in franchise history. Their 28 road wins are second only to the Yankees in the majors. And with the Cub loss today, the Astros lead is 4.5 in their division. Hi, everybody. Dave Campbell along with Kevin Kennedy. And, Kevin, not too many people picked the Astros to repeat after they lost Darryl Kyle and some key players out of their bullpen. But the pitching's been okay, and their offense has been more than okay.
Well, it starts with the #1 hitter in our lineup, best leadoff hitter in baseball, I believe, Craig Biggio. 75 runs scored already. Fantastic number right there. Derek Bell, the right fielder, hitting .330. Had a fantastic year up to this point, having a career season. The third of the killer bees, Jeff Bagwell, 17 games, 9 home runs in those 17 games. So those killer bees go to a big A when you talk about Moises Alou. 21 home runs, big home run last night. This guy hits 5th in the lineup behind Bagwell, drives in runs, scores runs, steals bases, plays defense. He does it all. It's the biggest addition the Houston Astros have gained this year.
Well, Andy Bennis of the Diamondbacks has to go against them tonight. He's 6-10. Mike Hampton gets his 3rd start coming back from the groin injury. But it'll be Moises Alou and the Astros, and they'll be going against young Travis Lee, a Rookie of the Year candidate for the Diamondbacks. Welcome back to ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball, the second game of our doubleheader. Certainly had a great pitcher's duel in the opener with Bartolo Colon losing 1-0 to the Red Sox and Pedro Martinez. Craig Biggio, he is part of that vaunted Astros offense that leads the National League in runs scored. They have had some great additions, Carl Everett, but the guy Biggio wanted to talk about was Moises Alou.
You add another Bagwell in your lineup, another home run threat, another RBI threat. It's been huge to our lineup. Moises Alou and Carl Everett, both of those guys have been a huge piece to our puzzle here because, last year we, nothing against anybody else, but we were spreading guys out and trying them to hit in different parts of the order, which they really weren't capable of hitting. Now all of a sudden you add the #5 guy like Moises Alou and Carl Everett. It's been huge to us.
Moises Alou, 21 home runs. He is 7th in the National League in RBIs. He has been everything they hoped for. A guy that, quite frankly, a lot of people thought should have been the MVP of the World Series last year. Let's take a look at that Astros lineup that leads the National League in runs scored, runs per game, stolen bases, and on-base percentage. Craig Biggio at second base will lead off. Billy Spires at third will bat second. Bell in right will bat third. Jeff Bagwell at first base hits cleanup. Moises Alou bats fifth. Carl Everett is having a sensational year, replacing Richard Hidalgo in center. Ricky Gutierrez is the shortstop. Brad Osma is starting to come on with a bat. Will hit #8, and Mike Hampton has been a recipient of seeing 5 guys in that lineup hit .323 or higher with men in scoring position. Andy Bennis goes for the Diamondbacks tonight.
Well, Andy Bennis comes in with a record of 6-10, ERA of 4.76. We're going to see a fastball, 92, 93 miles an hour. He throws a 2-seam sinking fastball and a 4-seam power fastball. A lot of high pitches that Andy throws. He'll mix in a hard slider, occasional curveball, mainly to left-handed hitters, and a changeup. His one problem, he's given up 20 home runs so far this year. Looking at the Arizona Diamondbacks defense, left fielder David DeLucci, he's a guy that's been playing fantastic for Buck Showalter. He's a throwback to the old days. This guy dives for everything. Made 2 great plays last night. Derek Bell line drive. Watch this play to left center. Flat out dive. Great play now going to his right. This is off of Carl Everett. Across the line, almost into the wall. 2 fantastic defensive plays. Maybe a Gold Glove.
Yeah, DeLucci's a guy that didn't even make the club out of spring training. He was sent to Tucson, and to add to the indignity of it, the day he was sent down, he also had his truck stolen, so he was without wheels to go down the 120-mile drive to Tucson. But all is well. He's been one of the bright spots for the Diamondbacks, who come in 31-62 in the National League West. Buck Showalter was hoping for better, but he also knew that expansion teams generally don't pay very well. A lot more comfortable inside tonight, Kevin.
Well, that's why the roof is here, 115 degrees, and we felt every bit of it walking in here.
We walked across the parking lot to get in, and we kept looking for a quicker entrance. Biggio leads off against Andy Bennis. Series even at 1 apiece. The Diamondbacks took the opener. Houston came back behind Shane Reynolds last night, who got his 12th win. 1 strike, says Bill Hahn, the home plate umpire.
If Andy Bennis can keep the ball in the outside corner, he's going to have success tonight. His problem, as I mentioned, is that he makes too many mistakes up in the zone. That's why he's given up 20 home runs so far this year.
Breaking ball hit fair down the third baseline. This should be extra bases in the corner. Biggio will go over and play it, and Biggio with a lead double for the Astros here in the first.
Andy Bennett's curveball, and a pretty good curveball. The ball was down, but we're talking about the best leadoff hitter perhaps in the game. He hits good pitches, he hits bad pitches, he fights them off. Breaking ball goes down, good bite to it. About 6 inches off the ground. Hits it just inside the third base bag, one hop, and the call was made correctly. It is fair.
But Biggio at second, nobody out, and Billy Spires, another one of those Astros having a good year. Steps in and try to hit the ball to the right side.
Well, they have a nice complement. Spires hitting left-handed, playing third base against right-handed pitching, and then Sean Berry, who played last night against the left-hander Omar Dahl. Good complement, lefty-righty for Larry Durkin.
Bouncing ball right side. Danny Clausen, the rookie, just up from Tucson, but Spires gets the job done, and on to third goes Biggio.
Spires did exactly what he's supposed to do. Drive the ball to right side on the ground perfectly to get Biggio to third base. Less than 2 outs. Pretty good hitter coming up right now.
Larry Durkin, second year at the helm of the Astros. Another great pitcher in the National League. See Bell's numbers. Also hitting well with men in scoring position, 333. We mentioned that the Astros have 5 hitters in their lineup hitting over 320 with men in scoring position. And surprisingly, Bagwell is not one of them.
He will be before it's all over.
Infield back conceding the run. Pitch outside. 2 balls, no strikes to Derek Bell. He homered in last night's game, and you see his lifetime numbers against Andy Bennis.
And he's trying to keep the ball down and away and stay away from his power area. Bell's strength is up, middle in.
3-0. On deck is Bagwell, so I think that Bennis is pitching around Bell here. We'll see if he might have a green light.
It's tough to pitch around Derek Bell to get to Bagwell, and you've got Moises Alou behind Jeff.
The Astros leading the National League in runs scored. Biggio is one of the top 3 in the league in runs scored. Last year, he scored the most runs in the National League in the last 65 years. Got to go back to Chuck Klein with the old Philadelphia Phillies. He finds ways to get on. He hits 300, he gets the walks, and for 3 years in a row, he's led the league in being hit by pitches, although he's getting a serious tussle from Jason Kendall of Pittsburgh this year. 3-2. Trying to drive that ball to right center.
Yeah, he's not taking 3-0. Larry Durkin lets Derek Bell swing the bat. He gets a fastball down the middle, fouls it back. Same pitch, fouls it back again. 7 sacrifice flies for Derek Bell, tied for the National League lead. He does not need a sacrifice fly now because the infield is back.
Fastball, a walk. So Derek Bell goes down to first base, and that will bring up Jeff Bagwell. Looking for the double play ball. He was not a ground ball pitcher, though. Buck Showalter hoping maybe he can get a breaking ball down.
Well, Andy has had pretty good control so far in 98. He's only walked 43 men in 136 innings. But he is a fly ball pitcher. Bagwell's a fly ball hitter. And Jeff's a pretty good low ball hitter. See if Bennis tries to power Jeff up, get him to chase it, and pop it up.
Could be a double play. Bell to Clausen. 6-4-3. Right in what the doctor ordered for Andy Bennis and the Diamondbacks. Jay Bell will hit number 2 in the bottom of the first. No score. Bennis gets the big double play ball, and Buck Showalter certainly liked that one to keep the Astros off the board in the top of the first. Showalter in his initial year with the expansion Diamondbacks will send the following lineup out to against Mike Hampton. Devon White, who was their all-star representative. He'll lead off in in center. Jay Bell at short. Matt Williams at third. Travis Lee, their fine rookie. He's competing with Kerry Wood for Rookie of the Year in the National League. Kelly Sinet, Yamil Benitez in right. David DeLucci in left. Danny Clausen, the rookie, at second. And Andy Bennis is on the mound, and they'll face Mike Hampton.
Mike Hampton really turned his season around the middle of last year. Larry Dierker helped him working the ball away. Now he throws a two-seam sinking fastball away where he used to come in on just about everybody. It's given him more success, gets a lot of ground balls, and mixes in a curve, change, and also a cut fastball.
1 ball, no strikes. Ron White, 3 for 3 in the All-Star game. The world champion Marlins a year ago, both he and Moises Alou. 2 balls, no strikes.
Well, right away, Hampton's working outside, and that's exactly what Larry Dierker had talked to me about before the game. I asked him about his success. He said, I've been working the ball away.
3-0 to Devo. He looks much better from this side of the plate. 340 versus 268. And a strike. A little bit of a delayed call by Bill Hahn.
3-0. That looked like a cut fastball. Had a little bit of movement running down and in. The location. A little movement right there. Cut fastball, and it can use.
Ripped to the hole, a base hit. Gutierrez gave it a shot, but Devon White opens with a single to left. And the Diamondbacks have their lead man on here in the first.
Well, that's exactly why Larry Dierker wants Hampton to work away in these types of counts. 3-1 is a cut fastball middle in. It's up. Devon gets enough of it to shoot it through the hole on the left side.
White with 11 steals, the only Diamondback in double figures. They're last in the National League in stolen bases. They don't run very much against Mike Hampton, who has a good slide step. Jay Bell has struggled. He struck out 84 times this year. And the breaking ball misses. 1 ball, no strikes.
Buck Showalter, as you mentioned, does not run very much. He's pretty much station to station. Devon White will be on his own, however, with those 11 stolen bases.
Wants to come out and talk to Hampton, who's fallen behind each of the first 2 hitters.
Back-to-back curveballs to Jay Bell. The idea right here is to get a sinking fastball down and away, try to get a ground ball here.
Guys ahead of him are Andy Pettit, Greg Maddox, Kevin Tapani, and Tim Wakefield. Fouled off. 2-1 to Bell. Jay, of course, first signee of the Diamondbacks at the Major League level, a 5-year, $34 million contract that certainly raised a lot of eyebrows around baseball. And he has struggled offensively. He struck out about 1 out of every 4 times.
Now remember, the second baseman, Clausen, that's up, was a shortstop in AAA, and he's at second base. He really hasn't played much of second base. Talked to Buck Showalter. Clausen is the shortstop of the future here in Arizona.
Bell takes off the edge, 3-1. So 2 consecutive batters. Hampton has gone 3-1. Bell will check his third base coach, Brian Butterfield, to see if they're going to start Devon. Diamondbacks went 8-31 out of the chute. They were buried early, but since then they've been fairly respectable at 23-31. Bell, a bouncing ball, fires to Biggio, back to first. 5-4-3 double play. So the double play ball has bailed both pitchers out of potential jams here in the first.
Well, Buck Showalter does not elect to put Devon White in motion on the 3-1 count, and for that reason, the ground ball to third turns into 2 instead of runner at second, 1 out. You've got 2 outs, nobody on. Quick turn right here. That's Craig Biggio, former catcher. Made the switch to second base. Perennial all-star.
Seen some catchers make the switch to third base, guys like Joe Torre and Todd Zeal, but the only other catcher I can remember going to second base was a guy named Teddy Sizemore with the Dodgers.
Well, the thing about catching, and what I believe, you got to have quick feet. You look at Pudge Rodriguez with Texas, he could play short or second. He's got great feet and great hands. Not like it was thought to be years ago, the big slow guy behind the plate. Not anymore with the speed in the major leagues.
We saw a shot earlier, Larry Durker in the dugout with Matt Galante, one of the coaches. He was the one that was the guy. Where's Matt? Nope, he's Vern Wood. But Matt Galante was the guy that taught Biggio how to play second base, and Craig really resisted it at first. He didn't really want any part of leaving the catching position, but it really is going to prolong his career.
Well, the quickness of your feet and throwing somebody out from behind the plate is the same way at second base when you're turning a double play. So there's the handler.
Minor league infielder for a number of years. Good instructor. Hampton's gone 3 balls on each of the first 3 hitters, and he walks Matt Williams. Looked like maybe he didn't want anything to do with him with a left-handed hitter, Travis Lee, coming out.
Well, especially 3-0. I'm sure Matt Williams had the green light. Hampton elected to stay with a simple array and missed by a couple of inches for ball 4.
Great throws at the first base. Williams the runner and Bagwell at first, and here's Travis Lee. Leads all NL rookies with 18 homers and 49 runs batted in. And Hampton is all over the yard right now. Mike missed 3 weeks with a groin pull. This is his 3rd start back. He was not terribly effective in either one of his first 2 shots back on the mound.
He comes into this game with an 8-4 record, 3.02 ERA. This game normally is throwing strikes, hitting the corners. First 7 starts for Mike Hampton, 2.84 ERA. Last 10 to see 3-4 record. A little bit of trouble.
Has been better on the road this year. Williams a short lead, but Hampton will go over anyway. 1 ball, 1 strike to the rookie Travis Lee.
He's not missing by much right now, so he'll get zeroed in as the game goes along. He's not getting the ball up, and that's a good sign. It's down. He's just missing by a couple of inches off the corners.
To Bagwell, the former Gold Glover, will grab that one easily and take care of Lee. That'll do it for the Diamondbacks. Moises Alou, Carl Everett, and Ricky Gutierrez coming on for the Astros. We go to the top of the 2nd inning at Bank One Ballpark in Phoenix. 115 outside, a comfortable 84 inside. Always comfortable when the Dodgers and Cardinals play. Raul Mondesi brings his act against Mark McGwire as he continues his assault on Roger Maris's home run record. 8 o'clock Eastern. This is McGwire earlier this year at Bank One Ballpark. Oh, my. Moises Alou leads off in the top half of the 2nd inning. McGwire hit one against Billy Wagner last Saturday in St. Louis, and it's a good thing there were some seats there.
That was batting practice, but he does the same thing in the games. He hits them further in the games.
Alou, ground ball left side. Matt Williams, 4-time Gold Glover, throws him out. 1 down, and let's go to Linda Cohn.
Thank you, Sue. You guys were talking about Mark McGwire. Let's see what Big Mac and the Cardinals are doing against the Reds.
Into right center will tie the game. Reggie Sanders will score without a
The Reds would tie it up with a Melvin Nieves RBI single. Back to you.
All right, Linda, thank you. Boy, the Cardinals have had all kinds of problems with the Reds the last couple of weeks. Here's Carl Everett, another guy who's been a big contributor. Richard Hidalgo, their fine young center fielder, separated his shoulder, and that gave Everett a shot. And look at the numbers.
And Everett is a switch hitter and hits equally on both sides of the plate. Hitting 327 left-handed, 329 right-handed. 328 overall.
2 balls, no strikes to the switch hitting Carl Everett. 245 lifetime hitter coming into the season. But those numbers he's obliterated this year. 2-1 after the high fastball. Dennis, a former #1 pick in the nation by the Padres back in 1988. He spent some time with Seattle and then St. Louis. Fastball strike, 2-2.
Good fastball down, 92 miles an hour. Almost the same pitch that he threw for the double play to Bagwell. They got a good pitch down to Jeff to end the 1st inning. 6-4-3 double play.
Full count to Carl Everett. One down here in the second with no score. Dave Campbell and Kevin Kennedy, the second half of our doubleheader. What a pitcher's duel in the opener. Pedro Martinez outdueling Bartolo Colon. Ripped to first, but Travis Lee grabs it. Ball hit right on the button, but a liner to the first baseman Lee. 2 outs in the Astros second.
Ball was up, looked like a cut fastball. 88 miles an hour. And a shot right at Travis Lee. Good swing, good quick swing. Travis Lee was right there. Backhand the ball. Ball had some top spin on it.
Ricky Gutierrez takes the ball. Gutierrez last year lost his job to Tim Bogar, but this year won it back with a solid 285 start. 1-1. Gutierrez picked up from San Diego in that big fall player trade engineered a few years back between the Astros and Padres. 1-2. Ken Caminero, Steve Finley moving on to San Diego. Derek Bell and Gutierrez part of the 12-man package involved in that deal, pulling towards Houston. Stays alive at 1-2.
Good location, down and away, 3 pitches in a row on the outside corner. See if Andy decides to come up and in. Looked like Gutierrez was diving, looking for the outside pitch. He comes up and in now.
Well, he threw a breaking ball, and Gutierrez went out and just kind of raked it to left for a 2-out single.
Well, that's why I thought he might come up and in, because it was obvious Gutierrez was looking down and away, and that's exactly what he got. Down and away, breaking ball. Ricky's looking for it, dives on it. It's off the end of the bat, but he was ready for it and dunks it into left center.
So a 2-out runner at first for Brad Osmus, the catcher. Osmus's numbers slowly starting to come up. He was below 200 in both April and May.
Durkin believes that he can run off of Andy Venice. Base runners have been successful 14 of 22 times in 1998 off of Andy Venice. And Houston leads the National League with 91 stolen bases.
A ball to Osmus. Brad 379 over his last 19 games to get the average up to 249.
With the pitcher spot on deck, 2 outs. Be a little deeper in the count, be a good situation for Gutierrez to try to run.
2 balls, no strikes. So both pitchers falling behind quite a bit in the counts tonight.
One thing that Venice has done so far, he's gotten the ball down and away, down and in. He hasn't made too many mistakes up in the zone.
Coming in, and we've talked about the Astros being so hot offensively, but since the All-Star break, they haven't swung the bats very well. Biggio, Bagwell, Bell, Everett, a lot of them were in the throes of hitting under 200 since the break. The Astros are 2-4 since the All-Star break. Runner going. Stinnet's throw is not in time. Gets past Clausen into center field, so Ricky Gutierrez steals his 7th of the year.
Well, 2-0 count. No surprise that the Astros are running. Again, it's a great situation. He's in scoring position now with Osmus at the plate. Pretty good jump. 3.5 steps before the ball is delivered to the plate. Stinnett just bounces this, well, actually off the end of the glove. If Clausen holds on, they might have had Gutierrez thrown out.
2 balls and a strike. Bouncing ball up the middle. Bell ranges and throws him out. So a 2-out single and a stolen base go by the wayside. We head to the bottom half of the second inning. No score. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. We'll remind you the 3 most important words are, hey, beer, man. No scores. We head to the bottom of the second. Mike Hampton out to face Kelly Stinnett, Yamil Benitez, and David DeLucci. Mike Swanson, the 9PR man of the Arizona Diamondbacks, came in to tell us that the Cleveland Indians only had 4 singles tonight, so that stops their extra base streak. And the Arizona Diamondbacks, with 80 consecutive games with an extra base hit, are now the current leaders. Hey, when you're 31 and 62, you're looking for a silver lining somewhere.
You're looking for story. They've actually played better. In the last 60 games, they've played close to 500 balls.
Here's Kelly Stinnett. I don't think those managers don't look at those batter versus pitcher averages.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't any doubt Stinnett was going to be in the lineup.
I saw that last night.
I thought maybe he'd be hitting 4th. He's 5 for 6 lifetime against Mike Hampton.
I was managing in the room last night. 5 out of 6. I said, he's in the lineup. Hitting over 800 off of Hampton.
Stinnett getting a lot of playing time recently when George Fabregas was out for 6 weeks with an ankle injury. Hampton opens with a strike. First hitter, he's throwing strike 1-2.
Buck Showalter has 3 catches, so he had some choices. Got another hitter, right-handed hitter, hitting catcher Damian Miller. Got left-hander Jorge Fabregas. Luxury of 3 catchers in the National League.
Stinnett hitting .242 overall. And this one's chopped left side. Spires cuts it off and makes the throw. And let's go to Linda Cohn.
Angels and Devil Rays. Angels strike first, courtesy of Tim Salmon. The double off of Wilson Alvarez brings on in Darren Erstad. Salmon's 9th double. He's got 44 RBIs. The Angels on top.
Thanks, Linda. I suspect you may like Darren Erstad.
Oh, fantastic looking ball player. Can play anywhere.
His father stopped me at the All-Star game and said, thanks for saying all those nice things about my son. I said, hey, it isn't tough the way that kid plays. Liner to left for Benitez, a base hit. So Yamil Benitez, first pitch swinging, lines a solid single left. The second hit for the Diamondbacks.
Well, Hampton made 3 good pitches to get Stinnett to ground to third base, and then the first pitch to Benitez is up. Bad location. He's lucky the ball wasn't hit out of the ballpark. It's up in his power area, gets through the ball. About belt high. Sharp single to left.
Benitez with a couple of steals. David DeLucci, the left fielder, the hitter, and Benitez will draw a throw.
Well, these next 2 guys, DeLucci and the on-deck hitter Clausen, these 2 guys may be here in Arizona a long time. And Buck Showalter and his staff are very high on the way DeLucci plays and second baseman Clausen.
Another move to first. Well, the Diamondbacks brought close to 70 guys in the spring training. They obviously knew about Bennis, Matt Williams, Jay Bell, and they thought they had a jewel in Travis Lee. But of all the other players, Clausen on deck and DeLucci at the plate have impressed them the most at this point. A ball and no strikes. DeLucci a solid .282 and hitting about the same against left and right hand.
And those defensive plays we saw earlier in the open, the 2 diving plays, they tell us he's done that 18 to 20 times this year.
Well, he makes SportsCenter quite a bit. Boy, that ball is strike. And that's kind of a crazy play. It looked like Osmus was going to throw behind to first base, and I think he hit DeLucci in the seat of the pants and rolled out the bench.
That's exactly what he did. He tried to throw from his knees, a little quick pickoff, and there was something in the way there. See him just try to throw from his knees and hit DeLucci.
Biggio's probably wondering if he gets an assist on this. 2 balls and a strike. Well, it was funny because it went to Biggio, but it might have gone right between first and second to right field, and it wouldn't have been so funny then.
Well, Buck Showalter was telling me before the game about DeLucci when he came in. I guess he made a quote in the paper that he was trying to fly last night when he made those diving catches, and they have a kangaroo court here in Arizona, and all the guys were making fun of him.
3-1. Hampton continues to struggle.
And that's all you can do. Osmus hit DeLucci, I think, in the tail section.
Yeah, he's from Cheshire, Connecticut. He looks like the Cheshire Cat there. Larry Durkis says, I haven't seen that play before. Hampton struggling a little bit with his control tonight. Over to first base yet again. Is that a sign sometimes, even if you don't think the guys are going, that a guy's just not feeling right on the mound if they make a lot of throws to first?
Sometimes you get loose. I think in this situation, he's just letting Benitez know that it's a running situation, 3-1 count.
That's the move that Durker told me about. He's actually got a slide step to first base. He said it's the only guy in baseball that does it, but he said he's been nailed twice on balks.
Well, they don't even try to run off of Hampton. That's how quick he is to the plate, and that's how well he has it, how good he is throwing to first base.
Fouled off. 3-2. 7 batters, 4 of them have seen a 3-ball count at least.
He's so quick to the plate that even on a 3-2 count, Showalter may not put the runner in motion because you can't get a jump off him anyway.
26 pitches with 1 out in the second. Benitez does go. Rip to left center field. That's in there for a hit. Benitez around third. They're waving him home. The throw coming. No throw. 1-0 Diamondbacks.
Showalter does play run and hit. Good first move by Benitez. He gets a good jump on the 3-2 pitch. The ball was drilled in the gap in left center. And because he was running on the pitch, he was able to score rather easily. Had he not been running, he would not have been able to score. He had to hold up at third base.
I think maybe Buck learned his lesson in the first inning. He didn't start the runner on 3-1 and got the double play. So.
Absolutely.
Here's Danny Clausen. Strike. Expansion draft choice from the Milwaukee Brewers. Their original number 2 choice. Benitez with the base hit and the run scored.
His 3rd home run last night off of Shane Reynolds late in the ball game.
Breaking ball swung on and missed 0-2. Clausen's been up for a little over a week. Went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in his debut, but since then has been mighty impressive. Shane Reynolds last night won his 12th game. That ties him with Greg Maddux among a couple of others with 12 wins in the National League. Fastball up, 1-2.
Clausen's 8 for 24, 3 home runs already. He can steal some bases also. 16 to 20 stolen bases in the minor leagues every year. 3 years ago, had a knee injury, surgery, reconstructive surgery on his knee.
Only knock on him last year at El Paso at playing shortstop there. He committed 50 errors. Going to Tucson this year where the manager is Chris Spires, a longtime Major League shortstop, and they worked with him quite a bit. A ball and 2 strikes to Danny Clausen. This one down low, 2-2. Well, what's new? The Yankees 11-0. Can anybody make a run at them in postseason?
I think in postseason, yes. I think if they play the Indians, talking about a guy like Bartolo Colon or Jared Wright, or what if Cleveland gets a guy like Randy Johnson? You're playing a short series, 5 games. You get 2 starts out of a Colon. He can beat anybody twice.
And this one's 3-2. Well, that kind of exactly what Paul O'Neill said. He was quoted as saying, yeah, we're off to a tremendous start, but let's wait and see what all these other teams do to add to their rosters before July 31st especially.
Well, that's what you jockey for right now. The Yankees are going to win their division. No doubt about that. It's who they're going to play in the playoffs.
Larry Durker not happy with Hampton's control right now. You see the look on his face. And the left-hander is struggling, getting a lot of pitches and not sharp. And after an 0-2 count, walks him. And Vern Rule, the pitching coach, will come out.
Like a changeup 3-2 count, respecting Clausen's ability to hit the fastball. He just chokes it off. Base open at first base, pitcher spot coming up, Andy Bennis. And I think that's what Vern Rule's talking to Hampton about. And be a little bit more aggressive, go after it. Let's go. Houston scores a lot of runs. Got to minimize a big inning right here. Andy Bennis does have a home run this year, hitting 152, so it's not automatic. Not automatic that this is a bunt situation with one out. Only 3 of 8 pitches, first pitch strikes. You like to throw it, 6 of 8.
You know, Kevin, when a guy's had a groin pull, does maybe he change his stride a little bit? Can that mess him up?
Absolutely. Pitchers, everything starts with your legs in sports, particularly pitchers.
Bennis lays down the bunt. Hampton will pounce on that foul.
And I'm sure that Larry Dierker wouldn't have him out there if there were any ill effects of that hamstring, but it is something to watch about. It is something to watch. He's had some problems with that. They can affect your push-off, and it can affect your landing.
DeLucci at second from the University of Mississippi star, and Danny Clausen at first base. Born in Ontario, but grew up in Florida, and Andy Bennis out of Evansville, Indiana, originally.
Andy's going to try to make Spires at third base field this ball.
And this is that bunt. And Bennis looks back, and it's strike 2.
Well, by the time the ball crosses home plate, Bagwell is only about 20 feet from home plate. Take a look at this bunt attempt.
Well, Andy thought he drew the bat back, and
well, I think he gave it that little push at first and then drew it back after the ball crossed the plate. That's why he was called for the strike.
ooh, Hampton down low. Bennis squared and then took the bat back.
And if that ball's bunted to Bagwell, he's got a good shot at throwing the runner out. DeLucci at third base. But with 2 strikes, Bennis doesn't have a chance to have the accuracy on the bunt. He just got to get it down in front of the plate somewhere.
1 ball, 2 strikes, 1 out. Diamondbacks have drawn first blood here in the second. And this is a good bunt. Nobody will make the play. I got it, you take it, and nobody did.
Perfect execution. Even with 2 strikes, little cut fastball outside corner. And Hampton's got to make this play. Both Hampton and Ausmus hesitated. Ausmus gets out of the chute pretty well. Hampton can make this play, and he hesitated just a split second, and then he bobbled the ball. By the time Ausmus picks it up, it's too late to get Bennis. Goes as a base hit.
DeLucci, Clausen, and Bennis. Sacks full for Devon White. Great play, fair. No play, though. A run scores. Tremendous play by Spires to get the force at third, but he could not get Devon White with a great speed going to first.
Spires saved 2 runs, maybe 3. The ball was sure double down the line. First pitch swinging, Devon White. Great backhanded grab. Spires is off the line. It's that hard dirt. Step across over and a dive. He catches it in fair territory. It's not where he landed. The ball was in fair territory when he made contact. When he turns and slaps the bag with his glove for the force out.
Tremendous play by Spires, but the Diamondbacks score a run and lead 2-0, and here's Jay Bell. Hampton opens with a strike. Last year hit 290 plus for Kansas City with 21 homers, 92 runs batted in, but his numbers this year are down. 2 aboard and 2 out in the second. This is hit fairly deep to left field. Moises Alou going back, looking, gone. 3-run homer for Jay Bell.
that's what Larry Dierker was talking about. Pitch these guys away. He wants Hampton to work the outside part of the plate, but decide to come first pitch in, and Bell burns it.
The Diamondbacks with a 5 spot. Here's Matt Williams, who takes the ball. Key play in the inning, giving the Diamondbacks an extra out on the bunt by Bennis.
And that pitch to Bell, that wasn't a mistake. A lot of times you say, well, he's trying to go away, he missed middle in. He was trying to go in. He was trying to throw the breaking ball there, and it's right into Jay Bell's swing. Right into his power. Middle in and down.
So Bell hits his 12th. RBI total gets to 40. Inside to Williams, 2 balls and a strike. Matty drew a walk his first time up. Three and 1.
27th pitch that Hampton has thrown this inning. Just does not have command of any of his pitches.
Looks like he's going back to what Larry Dierker calls his football mentality. He was a great defensive back in high school, but Dierker said he's got this mentality when things start going bad, he'll reach back and start overthrowing. 3 and 2.
Mike Hampton from the side. Head down, picks the target up a little bit late. A stiff front leg there, and that'll make you keep the ball up. What you want to do when you land with that front leg is land on a bent front leg so you can finish down low and get the ball down. You land on a stiff front leg as a pitcher, you're going to get the ball up. It's very tough to keep the ball down.
Hampton due to lead off in the 3rd. And a walk to Williams. Mike Hampton's evening may not be for long. One thing Larry Dierker is he's extremely patient with his starting pitchers, but he also reaches a point.
46 pitches already. We're only in the 2nd inning. Ideally, you like to average 12 to 15 an inning. He's way above that.
Diamondbacks beat Hampton in his first start after the groin injury at the Astrodome. And I think if nothing else, Kevin, Dierker would like to see Mike get back in a good groove. I mean, he would sacrifice the game if he could get one of his top 2 pitchers back in that good groove. Lee helped him out on a pitch up. 1 and 1. RBIs in the inning to DeLucci, Devon White, and 3 by Jay Bell. Runner going. Osmus's throw in the dirt in the center field, and Matt Williams will head to 3rd. Carl Everett's throw, not in time. Stolen base error on the catcher. So the Diamondbacks, who are last in the National League in stolen bases, have started 2 runners in the inning, and it's paid off.
And Brad Osmus is one of the better throwers in the National League. Got a quick release, but this is what happens when your pitcher works a lot of pitches. Brad still gets around the ball pretty well. It's a pretty good release. He just short hops his shortstop. If he makes a good throw, he throws Williams out easily.
1 and 2 to Lee. And it's 2 and 2 to the youngster.
You just get a little bit on your heels when the pitcher has to work this long in a ball game. As you know, Dave, being an infielder.
Outside 3 and 2. Jimmy Moore, I was well directly said, yeah, that was a long time ago.
When was that?
I'll tell you one thing, it's a lot better being an infielder indoors here than outside. That would be a real long evening.
How long would this inning be if the roof was open for Hampton?
Boy. And another walk. So Mike Hampton is really struggling. The 10th batter in the inning, Kelly Stinnett, will come on. So Vern Rule on the phone wanting to know how soon his bullpen can get ready. Again, Hampton is due to lead off next inning. Scott Ellerton, rookie, is up in the bullpen, just starting to throw. The Astros have 12 pitchers, but they only have 5 guys on the bench. So to go to a pinch hitter in the third is starting early. Foul ball.
Well, they'd like to get through this inning for sure. Down 5 runs. I think it's a little early. I think if Hampton can get this hitter out, I still think let him go back out there. Larry's had him up this line. Let him go back out there. If he gets this hitter out, let Hampton lead off. See if he can put a couple more zeros up there. And the Astros score runs. They lead the National League in runs scored, so they're still in the ballgame. They do have an off day tomorrow also.
They go home. The Giants come visiting over the weekend. And you see Hampton's numbers. Not the kind of numbers he would like to see. Sinet bouncing ball foul. No balls and 2 strikes.
He's only going to get the feel of his stuff by pitching. His changeup, 78 miles an hour. 74 miles an hour. He's got a cutter. His fastball's at 90 miles an hour, so velocity's fine.
He just hadn't established that down and away sinker that's been his bread and butter pitch for the last year. Just hit him on the hand. So if anything else can go wrong, I'm sure Mike Hampton doesn't want to see it. Bases loaded again.
Larry Dierker is trying to be very, very patient. They're trying to come inside. Austin sets up inside. The ball is inside, but hits him on the right wrist. Little check swing. Larry Dierker's going to make Hampton work out of this inning if he can. He does have someone up in the bullpen, but he wants Hampton to get out of this inning, and that's Larry Dierker's trademark with his starting pitchers.
Fly ball center field routine for Carl Levitt. So mercifully for Hampton and the Astros, the second comes to an end, but not before the Diamondbacks put a 5 spot on the board. A big 3-run homer by Jay Bell.
Linda Cohn in the Wednesday Night Baseball studios. Giants and Dodgers. Would you believe LA was up 3-0 in this game? Darren Dryford, a wild man. Darrell Hamilton would score all the way from second base. Giants win, and guess who got the win? Oral Hershiser.
That will not make the linguine taste very good for Tommy tonight. Here's Hampton leading off against Bennis.
He'll eat it anyway.
Spoken like a man that spent many a day with Tommy in the Dodger organization. 1 ball, 1 strike to Mike Hampton, who stays on. Dierker wants to try to get him straightened out. It's not as though he doesn't have a rested bullpen. He just wants to get this kid straightened out.
I think it's a good move by Larry Dierker. That's what I like about Larry. He makes his pitchers work. They get themselves into trouble. Don't look over your shoulder. You're going to get yourself out of trouble. And it's early enough in the ball game. Houston come back, score a couple of runs. Hampton puts up some zeros. They can get back in the ball game.
3 balls and a strike. So Andy Bennis, who was on the bench and on the base paths for a long time in the bottom of the second, last thing he wants to do is walk the pitcher to lead off.
Now, if Hampton's hurting, that's one thing, but he is not. Maybe he'll get the feel of his pitches here next inning.
3-2. Hampton taking all the way. Mike actually hitting at 242, so he's been representative at the plate this year. He walked him. So a no-no right off the bat for Andy Bennis here in the 3rd inning.
Especially when your team scores you 5 runs in the bottom of the second. You got to go right out and put a 0 up there. It's not a good start for Andy Bennis to walk the pitcher.
If the Diamondbacks could hold on and win this game tonight, it would be the first time all year they have won a series against a team with a winning record. So that would be a nice feather in their cap. Well, they were the punching boys in the National League the first month and a half. Craig Biggio doubled his first time up. Steps in, batting at .315. Right to Williams. Looks like another double play in progress. 5-4-3. And Clausen made a nice turn at second.
The second time he's made a nice turn. Bagwell grounded in a double play in the first inning. It's a big double play right here with first pitch to Biggio, breaking ball like a slider. Hit it hard, but on one hop. Matt Williams playing up even with the bag. Good turn by Clausen at second base. Got a strong throwing arm. See the turn, left foot hitting the bag, quick feet, quick pivot, and throws a strike to first base. Got a good throwing arm. He played shortstop, as we talked about.
Craig Biggio went through the entire 1997 season, 162 games, without hitting into a double play. That streak stopped on opening day of this year when he banged into a twin killing, and he hits into one here. Bill Spires, a tremendous play last inning, but all for naught as Jay Bell followed with a 3-run homer. One ball, one strike to Spires. Billy began his career with the Milwaukee organization. Came out of Clemson University, and Kevin mentioned he and Sean Berry have given them a great tandem at third base this year. Up the middle, Clausen right through the wickets into right field, and that'll go as an error. Spires a big turn, but will hold on. So Danny Clausen made a couple of nice pivots, but let one go right through the wickets. E4, and that'll give Derek Bell a chance to hit here in the third.
Andy Bennett's slider, middle in. Clausen has the glove down and just comes up just a bit too soon. Ball goes right underneath the glove. Some intensity. He's not happy about that. Good-looking player, though.
Bell will walk his first trip. One strike, says Bill Hahn.
I guarantee you Clausen wants the next ball hit right at him. That's the look he had in his eyes. Feels bad for Andy Bennis. Has turned 2 double plays very well. Boots the routine play. Dave, is that how you did it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd have the glove down and it would hit me in the wrist. They always said, don't bring the glove up. Again, Clausen had 50 errors last year, but when Chris Spire worked with him this year, basically the flaw that Spire found was that Clausen was trying to just throw before he had the ball.
He was rushing. Well, that's just a routine fielding error. He had the glove down all the way and just picked the glove up. It only takes about 4 inches. The ball was right on his glove.
One ball, one strike to Derek Bell. Fastball on the corner, 1-2. Bell may have solved the Houston right field situation. He became the 10th opening day right fielder in 10 years for Houston. Bell played center at the beginning of last season. Of course, he told Larry Dierker, he said, you know, Larry, I don't feel very comfortable out in center in my new position. And Dierker, who had just come out of the broadcast booth, said, what makes you think I feel so pleasant? Outside, 2-2. So Bennis went in and then out.
He had pretty good location tonight. We talked earlier how he's a high ball pitcher, but he has kept the ball down for the most part tonight. He's getting a lot of ground ball outs. Looking down and away, down and in. Good fastball, 91-92, and a hard slider.
Throw to first, and Kevin, I'm still trying to figure out what that path is from home plate to the pitcher's mound. It's the only one in Major League Baseball. I'm sure Buck had something in mind.
I think it was just the design that Buck wanted, just like the warning track. There's a double warning track in the outfield. Got a dirt warning track, and then 2 feet before the fence is a grass warning track.
Full count to Bell. Bennis has gone in for strike 2, away missed, just missed in. What's next?
Oh, I think he'll go fastball in the outside corner. Derek Bell.
Spires will be moving with a 3-2 count.
He's got pretty good command of his fastball so far tonight. I think they'll throw that right here.
Lee playing well behind, and Bennis was distracted by something. We mentioned Andy was the #1 draft choice in 1988. Padres were weighing whether to draft him #1 or a guy that's on the Diamondbacks right now, Greg Olson, out of Auburn University, who is a relief pitcher. And he got him, and you're right, he went away. So the air does no damage. We are through 2.5 at Bank One Ballpark in Phoenix. The Diamondbacks by 5. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Advil. Advil simply lets people do what they love to do. And by Miller Lite, who reminds you that a Miller time can be anything you want as long as it feels good. Diamondbacks with 5 in the bottom of the second. Jay Bell's 3-run homer, the key blow. David DeLucci knocked in the first run with a double, and he'll lead off here in the third. Here's Mike Hampton. All no strikes.
Pretty good pitch last inning to strike out Derek Bell. That was away, but it was a slider. Andy Dennis.
Bouncer towards Gutierrez. Takes kind of a kangaroo hop. 1 out. So Dennis Russell will come on, but in between innings, we'll talk with Vern Rule and Mike Hampton.
Yeah, I think Vern was talking about finishing his pitches. See the hand movement right there and the changeup. Then he's talking about finishing his pitches, and that's what Mike Hampton has not been doing. The ball has been up. Got to bend that front leg when he lands so he can get the ball down and get through the ball to finish his pitches.
Clausen drew a walk his first time after falling behind 0-2. That was a good sinker there.
Look at Mike Hampton from the side. His leg kick picks that target up. See how he recoils a little bit.
Breaking ball slapped down to third. Spires across the bag. Well, 2 up, 2 out.
Now Mike is trying to do what Vern Rule is talking about, and that's getting through the ball. He still recoils a little bit when he lands, but he's getting the ball down better, although that last pitch was up. And he's having a low pitch count this inning because after 2 innings, he had 57 pitches. Almost 30 an inning, and that's way too high. Starting to get into a better flow right now, so perhaps Vern Rule's instructions have started to work.
Key play in the inning was Bennis bunting with 2 strikes, trying to sacrifice, and Hampton couldn't make a play on it. That extended the inning. 2 balls, no strikes. Cincinnati and St. Louis have gone to the 10th. Saw Cincinnati, and showed us how they came back and rallied to tie that game. Pirates beat Kerry Wood and the Cubs today 3-0. Francisco Cordova. 3 balls and no strikes to Bennis. So Hampton still in struggle mode. Strike 3-1.
Strike, but a high strike. There's still a little recoil in Mike Hampton when he lands with that front leg. That was better.
3-2.
See how he finishes. Just want that left shoulder pointing at the catcher.
And a walk. Hampton's 5th. So Hampton has walked 5, hit a batter, and allowed 5 hits and 5 runs.
And Mike once again, the high leg kick. It's that front leg. See the recoil right there, and then he tries to finish, and it's too late. Now the left groin, his drive leg was the one that has had the pull. As you mentioned earlier, Dave, could that affect him? Absolutely. Could be favoring a little bit.
I just wonder, you talk about finishing. I mean, that could keep him from finishing if he's really not driving. May not be bothering him, but subconsciously.
Absolutely right. That's been his problem. He's missed some starts.
Back to the 1 year I managed in the minor leagues, I was out of pitchers, and I had to pitch, and I had never pitched before except with a screen in front of me.
That's right.
And Buck Rogers, who's managing El Paso, Bob Rogers, and I got ready to pitch, and he said, "Soup, no screen in front of you." And the first 5 pitches I threw bounced to home plate because I was so busy chucking and ducking.
That's right.
Devine down the right field side, foul and out of play. He used to be the only guy in baseball that didn't pitch in Little League or anywhere along the line. So I thought, I'll just throw it in here and get the game over with. We were behind 14-0.
You learn how to finish when you're throwing batting practice to major league hitters.
Yeah, but it's nicer when you can duck behind the screen.
Exactly.
Devo to center field, but certainly in sight for Carl Everett. 2-out walk, nothing produces. Jeff Bagwell. Moises Alou head up the Astros as they try to get back this as we move to the fourth. 5-0 Arizona. Diamondbacks got 5 in the second. Jay Bell's 3-run homer, the big blow. The British Open begins tomorrow. 127th British Open, presented by MasterCard at the Royal Birkdale Golf Club in Southport, England. Justin Leonard, the defending champion. Tiger Woods, Davis Love III, Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson, David Duvall. Tomorrow and Friday at 9 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And coverage continues on AB Sports Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern and Sunday 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern. The British Open on ABC. Jeff Bagwell banged into a double play in the first. And Bennis delivers 1 ball, no strikes. Even though Bagwell has 9 homers in his last 17 games, he is 3 for 21 on this current road trip. And the Astros have a chance of going home 2-5. Not what they had in mind, visiting St. Louis and Arizona after the All-Star break, but the bats have gone silent for the most part. 1 ball, 1 strike to Jeff Bagwell. 2-1.
Well, after 3 innings, Andy Bennis, of his 9 outs, 7 have been on the ground. And that's a pretty good sign of the command he has down in the zone tonight.
2-2.
A lot of ground ball outs. That was a good pitch down and away.
Bennis's career numbers have been much better in the second half of the season, at least in the win and loss department. And Bagwell takes strike 3 on the inside corner. Well, never out on strikes is Linda Cohn in the studio.
Dave, San Diego looking to stay 8 up on the Giants. Facing Colorado, Steve Finley. It's all good. A 3-run home run, his 7th of the year. Tony Gwynn 1 for 5 in this game. Kevin Brown wins his 8th straight.
Well, that's the 22nd game that the Padres and Rockies have played in Coors Field. And that's the first time the total run scored has been under 10. 6-2 final tonight. Here's Moises Alou. Padres now 22-6 against the West. Alou to center, and it's way back. And it is off the wall. It is bobbled, and Alou slowed down. Now he's heading for third, and he is in there with a triple. Ball high off the wall, but not above the yellow line. And we'll wait and see if it's a double in an air or a 3-base hit all the way. Devon White bobbled the ball briefly.
Devon White has learned how to play this high outfield wall. Here at the ball. Breaking ball. Moises Alou thinks he has a chance. Maybe this ball is gone. So he is Cadillacing it going around first base, and he realizes the ball is in play. Umpire gives the safe sign, which means the ball is in play. It's live. And Moises just does get into third base. Pretty good relay, but has the triple.
They do call it a 3-base hit. And here's Carl Everett. After the breaking ball and misses, no balls and a strike. Everett lined out to Travis Lee at first base. It was only at bat of the evening. 8 homers, 47 RBIs. Not even a regular center fielder. It was Hidalgo separated the shoulder. Strike 0-2. Infield is back. They'll concede a run, but Bennis wants to get the strikeout.
Started Everett off with a good curveball, came back with a 2-seam fastball, a little sinker away.
That one got him on the elbows, so Bennis trying to come in, hits Everett, and the Astros have 2 aboard for Ricky Gutierrez.
After 2 off-speed pitches, Bennis decides to come up and in to change the eyesight of Everett, hits him on the, like on the tail section, on a turn. A lot of meat right there. I think he's all right.
I'm sure we're not too pleased with that development. 1 out, Gutierrez. Whenever Bennis has needed the double play tonight, he's got it.
And he's gotten it by having good location on his fastball down and away and his slider down and away to the right-handed hitters.
1 ball, no no strikes to Gutierrez. Ricky reached out and spoke one to left field last time. That time Dennis pounded him in.
Well, that is not a ground ball pitch, but remember last time up, Gutierrez dove on 4 pitches down and away and got a single to left field, so now Dennis comes in on it.
Broken back grounder to second. Clausen only has 1 play to first base. Gutierrez out, but Alou scores and Everett moves into second. 5-1 Diamondbacks.
A little jam shot to Gutierrez. Had some running movement in on the hands. Dennis comes back in there twice. Ball not hit hard enough for a double play. Does drive the run in.
Brad Osmus up with activity in the Houston bullpen. If Osmus can keep the inning alive, there's a chance Gurker would pinch hit for Hampton. Osmus out on a roller to short his first time. Lofted to shallow right. Benitez has this one in sight. Inning over, 1 run in for Houston. Jay Bell, who homered before, will be due up along with Matt Williams and Travis Lee. 3.5. It's 5-1. Diamondbacks got all 5 in the second inning. Astros have been trying to play catch-up since. Well, you can always catch up with everything going on in baseball. Tune in Baseball Tonight. New time, 1 hour, beginning at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 Pacific. That would be tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. 10 o'clock for 1 hour of Baseball Tonight, and Sundays at 7:20 for the Sunday night baseball game. Baseball Tonight on ESPN. Bell homered his last time. Jay banging with a double play back in the first inning, but atoned for that with a 3-run shot to left. A good sinker there. No balls and a strike.
That might be the best sinker he's thrown the whole game, and this may be Hampton's last inning of work because he is due to lead off in the top of the 5th inning. It's a pretty good pitch, though, by Mike Hampton.
We talked about Kelly Stinnett with great lifetime numbers against Mike Hampton. Jay Bell now 11 for 17, 647 with 3 homers and 8 RBIs. That's even more than a cousin.
There it is.
Drive to deep right field. Ball's hit pretty well, but back to get it is Derek Bell all in front of the warning track. So Jay Bell hit it hard, but there's 1 out in the 4th.
I think Jay Bell sees the ball well off of Hampton. Ball's away. Good looking swing going with that ball away. Getting those legs down and through the ball. Not enough to drive it out.
Here's Matt Williams. Deep to right center field. Long run for Carl Everett. He says he's going to get it and does. So Bell and Williams give it rides here in the bottom of the 4th. But 4 pitches and 2 outs for Mike Hampton.
Well, that wasn't enough to drive it out either, but a pretty good swing by Matt Williams to the deepest part of the ballpark in right center field. Pitch right down the middle. Everett has a long run going into the gap. 413 sign. Ball's hit about 395 feet. Edge of the warning track. The first warning track.
Yeah. Here's Travis Lee.
There's a dirt warning track, and then about 2 feet before the fence, there's a grass, some 2 feet of grass there. That's the second warning track. Another design that Buck Showalter had a hand in.
In other words, if you're going full speed when you hit that second one,
you're in trouble.
Yeah, make sure the paramedics are on duty.
Now, Carl Everett had problems 2 nights ago on a ball just like that. And he pulled up short because of that grass.
This ball's hit a long ways and gone. Home run for Travis Lee, his 19th of the year.
Well, Travis Travis Lee is so quiet in his setup. He gets that front foot down very softly. That gets his hips and his hands through the ball. He stays back, just a short stride, and goes with the ball. Shows the power that he has opposite field over the 376 sign for his 19th home run.
Here's Kelly Stinnett. Looks to me like the ball carries pretty well to left field.
Now, we saw what happened with 2 balls to right field. And that one gets up in the air to left center and carried out pretty well. But he's a strong young man.
2 balls, no strikes. Well, Hampton's been throwing more strikes this inning, but he's given up a lot of feet and fly balls in the inning, including one that went over the wall. Stinnett deep to left field. This ball is way back. That have owned Hampton, Stinnett and Bell have homered, as well as Travis Lee. Here's Benitez. And again, Hampton due to lead off next inning, but Larry Dierker just can't seem to sneak him through for that final out. Foul off play. The Diamondbacks have scored 5 of their 7 runs with 2 outs.
Watch the pitch right down the middle and up. Out over the plate. Mike Hampton knows it's gone immediately. So does Stinnett. Wants the next ball. He just can't get through the ball, and I really think it's because he's landing with that stiff front leg. And when you land with a stiff front leg, your body comes up. It causes your arm to come up, and you can't get the ball down.
40+ thousand people here, and Mike Hampton's the only one that didn't see where that ball landed.
He didn't want to see
it. He
it.
was not going to turn around. I think you sometimes can tell by the sound. Benitez fouls this one out. So it is 7-1 Diamondbacks as they have featured 3 home runs tonight. And Mike Hampton has not been sharp. Scott Ellerton up for the 2nd time. I'm sure we'll see him in the 5th, if not sooner. Have a little work to do with Mike Hampton on a side session coming up.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to correct his lower half. Part of it is drive leg and back leg. You know, when you land on a stiff front leg, usually you're overstriding. You're pushing off too much. That's why you have a little recoil. So you got to land in a balanced position, just like you do when you hit. You got to land in a balanced position, and Mike Hampton is not.
Benitez stays alive. That said he got most of that one.
Oh, look at Mike Hampton's delivery. Watch the front leg. How stiff it is. See the recoil with the knee right there? That's what's causing him to get the ball up tonight.
Benitez might have gone. Yeah, they call him out, and Osmus will put the tag on. So that'll do it for the Diamondbacks in the bottom of the 4th. A couple of home runs by Travis Lee and Kelly Stinnett. Hampton due to lead. It is 7-1 Diamondbacks. Andy Bennis staked to a 6-run lead as we go to the top half of the 5th inning. We'll have a pinch hitter for Mike Hampton and then back to the top of the order. Earlier tonight, Jay Bell hit a 3-run homer, that back in the 2nd inning, and then in the 4th, Travis Lee hit a solo shot to left, and Kelly Stinnett hit a bomb deep into the bleachers in left center, well over 400 feet. 7-1 Diamondbacks. Trying to win their first series of the year against a team with a winning record. This is Dave Clark. He takes a strike. Clark was supposed to be part of a great bench for the Astros this year. They got Jack Howell and Dave Clark, 2 of the best pitch hitters in the game. Clark fly ball to left for DeLucci, but the pinch hitters of the Astros have hit 140 this year. Linda Cohen always hits 350, though. Let's check with her in the studio.
Reds in St. Louis trying to win their 10th straight. Tied at 2-11, Brett Boone grounds towards Clayton. Boone beats the throw at first. Mark McGuire goes home to get Sean Casey. The error on the throw by McGuire. Casey scores, so does Eddie Taubensee, and the Reds win. Mark McGuire 1 for 3, 2 walks.
Well, not only 10 in a row for the Reds after an 11-game losing streak, but they've won 14 out of 15, and they have killed the Cardinals. Here's Biggio. 1 ball, no strikes. The more trades they make in Cincinnati, the better the team plays. Kind of a strange deal.
Pretty good getting Reyes and Canerco from the Dodgers. Even though they lost a good closer in Jeff Shaw.
2 balls, no strikes to Craig Biggio. Biggio on the evening has doubled and bounced into a double play. Hitting at .314. 12 homers, 52 runs batted in for the Astros leadoff man. There is a strike, 2 and 1.
Good finish by Andy Bennis. Continues to get the ball down at the knees, 91 miles an hour. Good location tonight. Down.
2 and 2.
Perfect. 92 miles an hour. Even better. About 2-3 inches lower. He's established his strike zone now. He's going to start getting some pitches out of the zone.
Bennis trying to snap a 3-game losing streak. And gets Biggio to chase the slider. And Sinet will throw him out at first. Bennis gets a strikeout. That is number 3 for him.
Great sequence by Andy Bennis. Couple of fastballs. He finishes Biggio off with a hard slider in the dirt. Good finish by Andy Bennis. Take a look at Andy Bennis's front leg. Watch him land. Bent front leg. See it? Then he finishes and gets over the ball and through the ball. The bent front leg allows your hips to get through and for your upper body to finish the pitch and keep the ball down. You have to land bent to get through the ball and get your hips through.
Billy Spires, 0 for 2, reached on an error his last time up, and Bennis continues to drill the fastball at the knees. One ball, 1 strike. Bennis 110 wins lifetime. Breaking ball lifted to center field. And going back on it. Devon White. That'll do it. We go to the bottom half of the 5th inning, 7-1. Diamondbacks have utilized the long ball to forge a 7-1 lead as we go to the bottom half of the 5th inning. David DeLucci to lead off, and he'll be going against a new pitcher, the second of the evening for Larry Dierker, and that will be Scott Ellerton. Andy Bennis has cruised through 5, giving up 1 run on 3 hits. Ellerton, hard to figure a guy could be standing out there bigger than Bennis, but Ellerton comes in at 6'8", a former #1 draft choice.
Scott Ellerton, this is his 7th appearance. A fastball, overhand curveball. Saw 90 miles an hour in a fastball. Mixes in a changeup.
A strike. 0-2 to DeLucci.
And there's his cut fastball.
DeLucci drove in the first run of the night with a double to left center field. Part of that 5-run uprising. And good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Ellerton strikes out his first batter on 3 pitches.
Last pitch to DeLucci. Inside corner, paint.
So Ellerton retires his first hitter. Andy Clausen steps in. He is walked and bounced out. Jeff, put yourself in the Astros shoes. Obviously, Hampton is struggling coming back from that injury. Shane Reynolds has been their ace all year. Lima and Bergman and Shurik have pitched okay, but what do you do?
Go get Pete Harnish.
Yeah.
Well, they've had him before.
Yeah, I mean, Dierker says that he has been very pleasantly surprised by Lima and Bergman and Shurik, but he's no secret. He would like to have one more strong arm in that starting rotation.
Well, Larry believes that he can get to the playoffs with what he has. That's exactly what we talked about before the ball game. But he said it's going up against the Braves and the other playoff team, San Diego possibly. He doesn't know if he has enough to beat those teams in a short series. So a guy like Harnish that may be available would be a nice fit for this club.
Astros starters coming in tonight, headed up by Shane Reynolds at 12 and 5. Everybody except Schurik with a winning record, and everybody with an ERA under 4 with the exception of Schurik. Rip foul left side.
Well, Sean Bergman can be hot and cold. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. And Schurik just isn't strong enough to go late in the ball game. Shane Reynolds, a true ace, and Hampton, they'd like to be like he was a year ago. Obviously, tonight did not have it. He's got to do some mechanical things to get him back to where he was.
Bill Ellerton pitching out of the bullpen, but is a starter by trade. Right now, he's making a bid to maybe think about cracking the starting rotation.
Going for the outside corner, and he nails the outside corner. Brad Ausmus freezes it. Good location so far. Ellerton has only walked 4 men. It's his 20th inning of work. So he has shown good control, Dave.
Busted Andy Bennett back on that one. 1 ball and no strikes.
And he said, what's that all about?
Andy perfect at the plate tonight. A bunt single and a walk, and 2 balls, no strikes this time. I know he used to play with the Cardinals, but this is not McGuire, folks. This is Bennis. Got to throw strikes to him.
He's got 1 home run this year.
Yeah, he's got some in his career. He can hit the ball a ways. 2 balls and a strike. 2-2. Guess the Orioles decided to wake up after the All-Star break. 14-3 over Texas tonight, 7 in a row since the break.
Well, they beat a good Boston club. They swept them 4 straight over the weekend.
Dennis bounded to third, Spires on kind of a nasty hop, throws him out. 1-2-3 inning for the rookie Ellerton. It will be Bell, Bagwell, and Alou. Andy Bennis working on a 3-hitter as we go to the 6th.
Take a look at Mike Hampton on the left. Straight front leg when he lands, right there. Look at Andy Bennis on the right. It's the difference between getting the ball down and getting the ball up. Bent front leg. This helps him get through the ball with his hips, driving the ball down. 1 still in the game, 1 is long gone. This guy's in the game.
Derek Bell has walked and struck out tonight. Ripped to center field, and Devon White will have to play this on a hop. So Bell crushes one to center. Leadoff single for Derek Bell here in the 6th. Jeff Bagwell, he has bounced into a double play and struck out tonight. His road woes continue since the All-Star break, just 3 for 22.
Well, there's still time for the Astros. They can get a couple on the board this inning. With the best 2 guys in their lineup to do it, hit the long ball, Bagwell and Alou.
Do you ever notice here in Arizona they don't do the wave until the temperatures get to 115 degrees? And as soon as the Diamondbacks leave town for a road trip, everybody goes to California for a week.
Well, now that pool in right center is not such a bad idea, is it?
No balls and a strike to Bagwell. Just been working on a little mechanical adjustment.
There's the pool. There's people in it, too. I'm not really worried about the game, are they?
I don't think so.
Trying to get cool.
Go outside, 2 balls and a strike.
Yeah, Bagwell tried to quiet his swing down. He felt he had too many moving parts. Like my tongue just now. Wanted to quiet his hands down a little bit. He's got a very wide open stance. Really uses his lower half extremely well.
Play right side, 2-2.
teams try to power him fastball up because he's a good low ball hitter. See Jeff from the side. It's a lot of torque out of his hips. Then he gets the hands through. Just try to quiet that down a little bit so it can be more compact, a little bit shorter stroke.
7-1 Diamondbacks here in the sixth. Dave Campbell and Kevin Kennedy. Hope you're enjoying our ESPN doubleheader. Bouncing ball wide of third, foul. Pedro Martinez quieted down the Cleveland Indians with a 1-0 shutout in the opener.
Great matchup. He and Bartolo Colon, two of the better pitchers in all of baseball.
I would think there were probably a few fans in the Dominican Republic tonight.
Bartolo Colon throwing 99.
In painting. 2-2, the count to Bagwell. Jeff looking for his 22nd home run of the year. Get it on that one. The count stays 2-2.
He had a pretty good pitch to hit, 85 miles an hour, right down the chute, and Jeff knows it. Venice has had good location. They try to come up and in on him, and this ball misses. It's down out over the plate. Good extension by Bagwell, and he missed it. You can probably see a slider now, huh? Oh.
Drive to left center field to Ron White in full gallop forward. And cruise control makes the catch. 1 out here in the Houston sixth.
So Venice took 2 shots at him. One missed out over the plate. This one, pretty good location. 92 miles an hour, got in on Jeff a little bit. Here's the pitch. Inside. A little bit of tail movement to it. Bagwell just misses it. 92 miles an hour.
Difference between 92 and 88. Where do you think those two balls would have been gone at 88?
One's a fly out and one's, well, second deck up there.
Here's Moises Alou. Triple off the center field fence his last time up. Would have been a home run in a lot of parks here, but kind of climbed up halfway on the wall above the 407 mark. Moises 76 runs batted in to lead the Astros. He has been a tremendous addition. No question, the Astros are more potent than they were a year ago offensively. And despite the fact their pitching is rated 3rd in the league, again, that is the biggest concern Larry Dierker has at this point in the season. You mentioned getting deep in the playoffs. Houston, in the history of their franchise, has never gotten beyond the first round of any playoff series. 80, 81, 86, and 97 were always eliminated in the first round. 80 was a great series against the Philadelphia Phillies, 4 extra inning games. 96 against the Mets, great games that year. 97 last year, they were eliminated in 3 by the Rays. Oh, Moises drilled.
Well, last time up, Moises hit a breaking ball down and away for his triple off the center field wall. This at bat, Venice comes inside, and this time he hits him. Not intentional, just try to get under Moises' hands, and the ball ran in on him. See Stinnett sitting up inside. Looks like it hit him on the left elbow.
Andy Bennis said one thing he learned from Tony La Russa in his days in St. Louis. He said he became a better pitcher when La Russa taught him to pitch with a chip on his shoulder. Andy's a pretty easygoing guy, but La Russa basically said if you're going to be a competitor, you got to go out there and be mean. Here's Everett, bouncing ball up the middle. Klassen, Bell for 1, and no double play as Klassen had a little trouble, and then Jay Bell got spiked.
Well, Everett runs extremely well anyway. I don't know that they would have had to. Klassen did a nice job just to make a force play out of this. Backhands this ball. Little redeemer, little bobble, still has the flip. Jay Bell knows he doesn't have a play at first, looks to third. See if Derek Bell rounded third too far. Veteran shortstop.
Moises actually did not spike him. He just kind of rolled out with his hands, and I think he just ran a hand across one of Jay Bell's shins, so that didn't feel too good. So Bell moves to third. Everett safe on the fielder's choice. Lou out 4-6. And here's Gutierrez. Bouncing ball, Matt Williams off his foot. And the only reason it didn't go into left field is because it hit his foot. We'll wait for the scoring on that as the Astros get another run. So a little bit of shaky defense by the Diamondbacks here in the top of the 6th, and that'll be an error on Williams. That is his 3rd in the series, and he only had 6 coming in.
Yeah, he's had a tough series. This ball gets on Matt quickly. Matt's playing even with the bag at 3rd. 2 hopper. Never got the glove down. Hit him on the ankle. Kicks off toward the 3rd base coaching bench.
Skate save, but he couldn't control the rebound. Here's Brad Osmus. So there goes an error, and an unearned run here for the Astros in the 6th. Just a strike.
Good slider by Andy Bennis, down and out of the zone. One thing that Andy is doing tonight is as soon as anybody dives on him and tries to take that outside corner away, he's coming right up and in on the guys, keeping everybody honest, not letting the hitters get comfortable.
Pickoff at first. Well, that throw had been on the inside part of the bag. Ricky Gutierrez would have been picked off, and when you're trailing by 5, that's a no-no.
Well, Stinnett, this was a design play. Stinnett's sitting up way outside. You can see him on the outside corner. Throwing behind the runner at first, Travis Lee. Throws to the foul side of first base. If it's to the fair side, it got him out at first base.
1 ball, 1 strike. 2-1.
That's a play put on with Lee playing behind the runner, of course. That's a play put on between the catcher and the first baseman after the pitch.
Jose Cruz, first base coach, it's his responsibility to yell, "Get back," when Lee comes in. He did, but Gutierrez was late reacting. 2 balls and a strike to Brad Osmus.
Of course, base runners have the primary lead, which is the lead that they have before the ball's delivered. And now, as it's being delivered, they bounce off, usually 3 strides, which is their secondary lead. And when they get that big secondary lead, that's when guys have a chance to get picked off.
Couldn't hold up on the slider. 2-2 on Osmus.
You do that against Pudge Rodriguez in Texas, forget about it. Believe me, you're out. You can't get big secondary leads on catchers that are quick. That's one of the reasons catchers like to throw behind the runners. Not always to pick them off, but to stop the runner from going first to third on a base hit. Maybe not get him into second base on a ground ball.
I'll tell you, the one thing I could do pretty well was run the bases, but there were 2 guys that just intimidated the dickens out of me, Johnny Bench and Steve Yeager. And I would not take aggressive leads off the bases for those 2 guys. And it's a full count to Osmus. 2 outs, the runners will be going. Everett from second, and Gutierrez from first.
Randy Bennis has thrown a lot of sliders in this sequence to Osmus. See if the full count, if he goes all the way with it. That's apparently how he wants to get Brad out.
Ripped to right center, and it's not going to be caught. 1 run is in. Devon White bobbles briefly and gets it back in. 7-3. And we are going to have a pinch hitter for Ellerton.
I believe this was a slider, but it was up 3-2. And Osmus, who had seen 3 or 4 in a row, was looking for it. And went right with the pitch, drove it into right center for the run-scoring single.
Well, Mark Connor, the pitching coach, will go out and talk to Bennis. You know, once again, Kevin, it was a defensive lapse by Hampton that extended the second inning, and 3 more runs scored, and Clausen didn't really handle the double play ball very well, and then Matt Williams compounded it with a boot. Give major league teams, especially good hitting teams, more than 3 outs. Sometimes you pay.
Especially the Houston Astros, who score more runs than anybody in the National League. There's still a long ways to go in this game.
Diamondbacks, Clint Sadowski is trying to piece together a bullpen.
Just freeze it.
Ripped to center field, a base hit. Bennis reached for it, right past his nose. Osmus around to third. Gutierrez scores, and it's a 7-4 ball game.
Well, the one thing that Bennis has done on the last two hitters, Osmus, he stayed away with sliders and finally got burned. Phillips, he stays away with fastballs, and he gets burned. 2-run scoring singles. There's another fastball away. 4 in a row. Stays up, full extension, just off the glove of Bennis. And on into center field for the run scoring single. And then into patterns here, the last two hitters.
Showalter stays with Bennis. Probably as much testimony to Andy as it is that he doesn't have great confidence in his bullpen. Runs are not earned, but that's no consolation to Bennis or Buck Showalter right now. 1 ball, no strikes to Biggio.
No, this is a ball game now. We're only 3-run in a 3-run differential. This is a ball game. Buck Showalter knows it. He's got his, should be his best guy out there in Andy Bennis. His stuff is still good. He's just gotten into patterns in the last two hitters. Change the eyesight.
Good stop by Stinnett. Remember that key throw to first base, and that ball just been on the inside part of the bag. They could have had Gutierrez picked off.
Well, the real blow is that Gutierrez was even on to begin with. Getting the ball to Matt Williams, you expect that play to be made.
Biggio, the tying run. Matt Williams, usually very sure-handed. 4 gold gloves in the book. And it's low. 3-0 to Biggio. On deck is Bill Spires.
And Matt Williams, pretty much all night long, has had to play even with the bag with runners on base. Biggio will bunt at any time. He'll do anything to get on base or drive a run in. So Matt has to play up, and when that ball hits the hard ground here, it gets to him quickly at third base. The last one, him on the ankle.
Way wide, and they are loaded for Spires. Diamondbacks only have one left-hander in their bullpen, and that's Alan Embry. Osmus at third. J.R. Phillips at second. And Biggio at first base. Spires 0 for 3 tonight. Has been aboard once on an error. He is hitting .344 with men in scoring position. I mentioned earlier the Astros, 5 guys hitting higher than .320 with men in scoring position. Larry Dirker working on the Sunflower season. 1 strike to Spires.
Good sinking fastball by Andy Bennis going away from Spires, 86 miles an hour. 28th pitch this inning. 94 overall for Andy Bennis.
Mariners have jumped up on top. And it just misses. I think Seattle's got a shot at getting back in that AL West race. They're 11 out starting the action tonight.
Well, I think back to 1995 when they were 10 or 12 out against the Angels, and they came back in August and ended up winning their division.
3 teams to climb over, but right now the Angels in Texas have some questionable starting pitching. Spires down the left field side, foul territory. DeLucci will go, but it's in the seats. So the count goes to 1-2 to Bill Spires.
Well, Andy Bennis is staying outside. He's trying to stay away from anybody's power, which is middle in to most hitters. Stinnet's talking it over right now with Andy Bennis. Do you want to come inside one time? Because he has not done that with the last 3 hitters.
3 aboard. Osmus ready to roll at third. J.R. Phillips at second, and Craig Biggio at first. 1 ball, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. The Diamondback lead has been cut to 7-4.
Going away.
Ripped and it's into right field, a base hit. 1 run in. Here comes Phillips to the plate, and he is safe. It is 7-6, and the Astros are back in it.
Well, he did not come back inside. He elected to stay away, and again, he's been in patterns with the last 4 hitters. Fastball away with good velocity, but did not change the eyesight. Ball was down and away, and Spires was ready for it.
Second trip out, so Buck Showalter will make a pitching change.
Fastball, little sink to it, but down. Into the left-hander swing. He likes the ball down and drills it into right field for the single.
So Bennis can't get out of the 6th. He does leave with a lead, but it is in jeopardy as Sadowski comes on. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by the Delta Faucet Company. Delta, the faucet. 5 spot by the Astros here in the top of the 6th inning have brought them back within 1. The man who led it off, Derek Bell, will face Clint Sadowski as the Astros send their 10th man up to hit in the inning. Diamondbacks batted around in the 2nd. The Astros have done it here in the 6th.
Clint Sadowski is a sinker slider type pitcher. Try to get a ground ball here to get the final out. 34th appearance. Those tend to walk too many guys. 21 walks in 41 innings.
Biggio inspires the board at the corners. It's 1 ball, no strikes to Derek Bell. Sadowski came in on Monday night and did a good job against Houston. Bell, another guy with men in scoring position. 333 this year. He has knocked in 64. He was second to Alou in RBIs on the club. Ripped to right and just fouled. So Sadowski and the Diamondbacks dodge a bullet there as that ball was fouled by about 3 feet. Players all the way around to third. As our third base coach Mike Cubbage said, Bill, a foul. Foul ball.
He would have scored. There's so many angles in this outfield. So many extra base hits, doubles and triples. Some of the cutouts in the outfield. Very difficult outfield to defend against. Levon White knows how to play it.
7 gold gloves for him. Inside the Bell, 2 balls and a strike. They've been trying to pound Derek in most of the evening. So Andy Bennis only goes 5 2/3. He only gives up 1 earned run, but could not close the door in the 6th inning. Defensive misplays hurt. Strike on the corner as they stay in on Bell. 2-2.
Well, 2 things he can do. He can come right back in again or throw the slider away.
7-6 Diamondbacks. Very good. More relaxed look in his face right now.
Trying to get Mike Hampton off the hook here.
And he got it. Sadowski comes in and gets a big strikeout. The Astros tie the tying run at third. Devon White in the top of the order up for the Diamondbacks. Astros scramble back into it with 5 in the top half of the 6th inning. It is 7-6 Diamondbacks as we go to the bottom half. This pitching summary is brought to you by Sherwin-Williams Paint and Wallpaper Stores. Mike Hampton really struggled early on. Andy Bennis was real good until the 6th, but couldn't overcome a couple of defensive lapses, although he only gave up 1 earned run. He threw 97 pitches in 5 2/3. New pitcher on for the Astros, their 3rd of the evening, left-hander Trevor Miller.
Trevor Miller's 23rd appearance. Throws a fastball, overhand curveball, slider, and changeup. He's had a lot of success against left-handed hitters. They're only hitting 222 often. Right-handers, 271.
Devon White, 1 for 3 tonight. He singled in the first, reached on a fielder's choice, and drove in a run. balls and 2 strikes as Miller jumps out in front of White. And DeGrom hitting from his better side, about a 50-point differential. Ground ball towards third. Spires has been busy, and that's 1 out here in the 6th. Let's go to Linda Cohn.
Power trips aplenty at the Kingdom. Edgar Martinez first, then Dan Wilson with his 7th home run of the year. It made it 4-1 Mariners over the Twins. For King Griffey Jr., he's 0 for 3 so far. Dave?
Thank you, Linda. Mariners trying to make it 5-2 since the All-Star break. Jay Bell had a 3-run shot back in the 2nd inning. This ball's hit a long ways to right, and it's not going to be caught by Bell. It's into the corner and off the fence on 1 hop. It'll be a 2-base hit for Jay Bell. So Bell has hit it hard 3 times tonight. A home run, a double, and a long line out to right field.
Tried to go to right field his last at-bat. Flew out to right. This time he finds a good spot. Same type swing. It's down and through the ball with his legs, his hips, and then his hands. 1 hops the fence. A nice carom for Derek Bell to get the ball back in and keep Jay Bell to a double.
I think Matty Williams is squeezing the sawdust out of the bat right now. His hair opened the floodgates last inning. He wants to do something on the positive side. Nice block by Osmus. 1 ball, no strikes.
You know, right after that error to Gutierrez is when Dennis got out of his rhythm. He was throwing the ball both sides of the plate into Osmus, Phillips, Biggio, and Spires. He just threw everything away, and the guys were sitting on it.
Matty, a couple of walks and a fly out tonight. And that's on the corner, off speed, 1-1.
Miller's fastball tops out at usually 90 miles an hour. This is in the changeup there, 79. Throw an overhand curveball.
Came out of the Minnesota organization. A ball, a strike, and an out. Bouncing ball left side. Spires has it, and that's the 2nd out in the inning with Bell moving on to 3rd.
Doubled up on the off-speed pitch. Got Matt Williams out in front. 79 miles an hour. Larry Dierker is not one of those managers that worries about matchups. Lefty, lefty, righty, righty. He believes that the pitcher can pitch unless he's a true lefty specialist like a Paul Ossenmacher. He lets him face lefties, righties. He likes his relievers to pitch a couple of innings.
Travis Lee homered against left-hander Mike Hampton his last time up. And Miller throws strike 1. Throwing a strike first pitch to all 4 hitters. Jay Bell picked on the first one and doubled into the corner. Bouncing ball foul. Back in the 4th with 2 outs, and the Diamondbacks already on top 5-1. He went the opposite way of against Mike Hampton and got it into the 2nd row for his 19th homer of the year.
Well, we just saw that Travis Lee can hit a hanging breaking ball from a lefty. See if Miller decides to throw a breaking ball or not.
Stayed in on him and struck him out. So Trevor Miller with an impressive inning. We head to the 7th. The Diamondbacks lead is down to 1. Welcome back to Bank One Ballpark. Kevin, both starters faltered a little bit. Battle of the bullpens coming up.
Yeah, remember there's Billy Wagner down there for Houston. If they can get that 1-run lead switched around in their favor, then this guy throws 99 miles an hour. A little bit better bullpen, I think, for the Astros.
And once again, defense, a critical key. Both sides let down a little bit, and it cost them.
Yeah, big error by Williams last inning cost Andy Bennett. He wasn't able to get out of the inning after that. And, of course, in the 2nd inning, Mike Hampton was unable to field a bunt cleanly from Andy Bennett, and both sides had 5-run innings.
Well, Matty will try to atone. Clint Sadowski came in and got a big out last inning, and now must deal with Jeff Bagwell, Moises Alou, and then Carl Everett. Bagwell looking for his first hit of the night, a double play strikeout and a flyout. Fly ball to right field. Long run into the corner and foul. Yaniel Benitez, a long run into the catch up with it.
That foul territory here, the angles in the outfield, the brakes have to be put on. See the padding as he puts his hands up against that. And you need padding in this ballpark. A lot of angles.
A ball and a strike to Bagwell. Showalter involved in part of the design of this ballpark. In fact, Buck was involved in just about everything. Some people have said he may have had more input than any manager since Connie Mack, who happened to own the team, the Philadelphia A's.
Nice 7-year contract.
Bagwell, hot shot, great play by Matt. On to first. There's a redeemer. Bagwell robbed by Matt Williams.
Matt Williams playing deep because it's Jeff Bagwell at the plate. Gives him a little range and a hard one-hopper, a step and a half to his left, knocks it down. Easy flip across the infield.
Matty with 3 Gold Gloves while he was in the National League, and then won one last year with the Cleveland Indians. Deep drive to left field by Moises Alou, and we're tied, folks. Alou has tied it with a home run to left. Sadowski got the big strikeout of Derek Bell in the 6th, but 2 rockets here in the 7th, one of them going the distance. Number 22 for Alou, and Drifter has seen his team come back from a 7-1 deficit to tie.
Oh, there's the big A that we talked about in the open. 22nd home run. He's tripled tonight, hit by a pitch. Now hits the game-tied home run. Sinker that really didn't sink much, about thigh high. Moises turns on it, and we're tied.
Here's Carl Everett, popped left side. Jay Bell makes the call, says he'll take it. Does, and that's out number 2.
Truly the biggest acquisition for the Houston Astros. Sean Berry and company congratulating Moises.
Well, this would be a big comeback for the Astros if they could win this. They could salvage a road trip at 3 and 4 instead of limping home 2 and 5. They still got some ball to play, but Moises Alou had a triple and scored the first run of the night, and now homers.
Moises, of course, brings that air of confidence. He's got a world championship ring to his favor.
Gutierrez kind of tied up inside 0-2.
We were talking to Craig Biggio today, and he called him, it's nice to have 2 Bagwells on your team. That's quite a statement from one of your own players. Biggio comparing Moises to Bagwell. He's got pretty good numbers in the 4 and 5 spot.
Matt makes the play, all things considered. If Matt Williams doesn't make the play on Bagwell, it might be an 8-7 ball game right now.
That's what makes it so tough when you've got Moises hitting behind Bagwell. He's going to get more pitches to hit. You've got to pitch to one of them, especially if men are on base. You can't walk everybody. You can't pitch around everybody. And Moises hitting in the 5th spot just complements this whole lineup.
7-7 in the 7th. A ball and 2 strikes to Ricky Gutierrez. Bouncing ball towards Clausen. Danny gobbles this one up and throws him out. But a loose homer in the top half of the 7th ties it. We go to the bottom of the 7th. 7s are wild. Moises Alou's 22nd home run of the year has tied this game at 7. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or transmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. Kelly Stinnett, long home run his last time up. Trevor Miller in his 2nd inning of work. Mike Hampton and Andy Bennis will not figure in the decision. Stinnett, a looping drive to right field. Long run for Derek Bell, but he gets there and gloves it for the out. Nice running catch by Bell. 1 pitch, 1 out in the 7th. thousand on hand, number 3 in baseball in attendance this year. They just slipped behind Baltimore. The last couple of nights have been their lowest crowds of the year at 40,000 against the Astros. Looks like maybe about the same tonight. Grass inside the dome suffered some in the month of May, but then came back to life. They had to close the roof today about 1:30, though. They usually leave it open during the day so the grass can grow, but because of the intense heat, they closed the roof 6 hours before game time. 0-2 to Benitez. Here's the roof that takes about 15 minutes or less to close. So 4 minutes to close the entire roof.
It's Toronto that's 20 minutes. There's going to be a lot more roofs. We're in Seattle next year.
Yeah, Seattle's getting one.
It's going to be retractable.
A lot of new parks springing up. I read today that Padres and the city of San Diego appear to have agreed on a plan. Certainly good. The Giants will have a new park.
Well, it's funny. Most roofs are retractable because of the rain. This place because of the heat. 115 in the shade today.
2 balls and 2 strikes. And Benitez fouls it back to stay alive. Kevin Miller's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, he mixes it up. Yeah, got a fastball that hits 89-90, then he throws that little sinker, mixes in a curve, changes speeds, and works both sides of the plate. Keeps the hitters off balance.
Benitez does have some pop. 6 home runs on the season. Did he go? Nope. Full count.
Well, Osmus wanted the ball inside, but Miller didn't want to bring it in there. If he makes a mistake middle into Benitez, he has the capability of going deep. That pitch was left way outside off the plate.
Benitez out of Trujillo Alto in Puerto Rico. Goes down and golfs one to left field. The Lou will have to play this on one high. That might have been ball 4, and he still drilled it to left.
Benitez is a low ball hitter. It's a fastball down, a little bit of cut to it, cut fastball. There's a ball swing. 7-iron?
Wasn't high enough. I think it was a 1-iron. A low liner. Almost took a divot, though. Here's DeLucci.
He never was a good golfer.
1 for 3 for the youngster out of Mississippi. Swung on and missed the breaking ball. Won the SEC batting championship in college. Nosed out Todd Helton, young rookie first baseman who's having a fine year with the Rockies. Helton starting to get him the home run bat going. Got up to 15 last night. DeLucci lays off the curve. 1-1.
Benitez at first base is not a true base stealer. Only 2 stolen bases this year.
7-7 game in the 7th. Diamondbacks squandered a 7-1 lead. Benitez was on a roll, a 3-hitter going to the 6th. A little bit of lax defense, and then he hit a batter, walked a couple of key guys, and gave up some hits. And the next thing you know, it was 7-6. Swung on and missed 1 and 2.
It's a big out right here to get DeLucci because Clausen been swinging the bat very, very well the last several days, hitting in the 8th spot. A lot of people feel that he's going to be their number 2 hitter in a very short time, but right now Clausen's in the 8th spot. Tough out.
Good breaking ball from Miller, and strikeout number 2 for Trevor.
A lot of breaking balls to DeLucci. See, his tail wasn't in it, neither was his heart. He waves at it for strike 3.
2 down, and that'll bring on Clausen. Damian Miller, a catcher, has moved out to the on-deck circle. He would hit if Clausen can reach base. Change up outside. 1 ball, no strikes.
With 2 outs in the 7th inning, Spires, third base, not quite guarding the line, but shading that way. You don't want a two-out double, even though it's not the 9th inning. You want an extra base hit here after the Astros have come back so far.
2 balls, no strikes. Clausen, 331 last year in El Paso, in Double-A Texas League in the Brewers system. He was taken by the Diamondbacks in the expansion draft. Was hitting close to 300 at Tucson with 10 homers before his call-up. 3-0. So Miller falls behind.
Well, Miller is very well aware that Clausen's a good fastball hitter with power. And he's pitching around him, but you don't want to put the go-ahead run into scoring position. And that's exactly what he'll do if Clausen draws the walk.
Strike, 3-1. Alan Embry, the lone left-hander in the Diamondback bullpen, is throwing. He would come on if they pinch hit for Sadowski. Drive to right field. Bell getting on his horse and makes a good running catch. So Derek Bell throwing a little bit of leather in the bottom of the 7th. We head towards inning number 8. We are square at 7. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Duracell. When it better work, better make it Duracell. 7 up in the top half of the 8th inning. Brad Osmus and a pinch hitter for Trevor Miller, and then back to the top of the order as Buck Showalter has seen a 7-1 lead disappear. Osmus had a single in the 5-run 6th. He'll try to start it out against Sadowski. Ball, no strikes.
Matt Williams has to play even with the bag and up in case Osmus decides to lay one down.
2 balls, no strikes. Tim Bogar is in the on-deck circle. But Kev, I think he is only in the on-deck circle to bunt if Osmus makes it, because we saw Sean Berry up there at one time.
Right. Sean has more power.
Osmus, base hit to left. DeLucci will have to go into the corner, and Osmus will have a lead double here in the 8th inning. So, does Bogar stay, or does he go to Berry right now? I guess he's not going to go for the sacrifice.
Matt Williams, we talked about him up even with the bag. He's off the line. He's looking for a bunt. He's on the line. He has this ball, but Buck Showalter elects to have Williams take the single away and not the double here in the late in the game, and this time it burned him. Osman turns on it, gets it into the corner for the double.
Everybody has their own philosophy. When you manage, what was your philosophy?
Depended on the pitcher. I got a sinker ball pitcher who might give up a lot of ground balls like that. I probably have Williams shading on the line a little bit. Depends on the pitcher. If you got a power pitcher, Osmus is not going to turn on the ball. Then I'd have Williams off the line. But most of the night, Matt Williams has been up even with the bag looking for a bunt, with the exception of Bagwell when he's up. Everybody else, he's been up even with the bag.
Sean Berry, the pinch hitter. He has been the hottest of all Astro hitters of late. He's 11th for his last 22. Larry Dierker, when he pulled Bogar back, you knew that he was going to eschew this sacrifice and let Mr. Berry swing the bat.
Matt Williams is now backing up. Berry's got the count in his favor. Should be swinging.
Foul in that one. He nailed the home plate umpire, Bill Hahn. It looked like Berry was taking a shot to the right side there.
Yeah, and that ball sank on him. It was tough for him to get his hands inside the ball to drive it the other way. Watch the movement on this ball. He tried to get his hands inside the ball to shoot it to right field. He couldn't do it because of the movement from Sadowski coming in on the hands of Sean Berry. Matt Williams wide of third. Now he's backed up a little bit. He knows Berry's up there to drive the run in. Not up there to bunt in this situation.
Berry just kind of giving the home plate umpire a little courtesy. Backed out of the box about 3 times. Got Hahn pretty good down in the leg. 1 ball, 1 strike. 7-7 tie in the 8th inning. The Astros trying to forge a lead. Just missed inside. Sadowski wanted it. 2-1.
Now here's the situation. Sadowski knows that Barry's trying to go to right field, and he's coming inside with his out pitch, and that's his sinker. 2-1 count. Now does Sean Barry change his philosophy? Does he just turn on one and try to drive him in by singling to left field?
Fly ball, right center field. Got some steam. Devon White way back. Way back is Benitez. He's got it, but tagging up and moving to third is Osmus, and Barry gets the job done.
And a nice job it was. That was another fastball in, and Sean did get his hands inside the ball, got underneath it, and drives it deep enough to right center to get the runner to third base.
Cubs lost today. They were shut out by the Pirates 3-0, so Houston could get on the plane tonight with a 5-game lead. They have only played the Cubs twice this year. So one of those was the 20 strikeout game by Kerry Wood at Wrigley Field. Milwaukee has their work cut out for them in the next week or so. Biggio up with the infield in. I saw Schilling tonight, and then they get Maddox, Glavine, Millwood, and Smoltz the next 4 games. They were able to beat the Phillies. Check the defense. They are in at the edge of the grass. They need to cut this run off. Showalter knows that Billy Wagner, one of the best closers in the game, he can ill afford to give up the lead. Biggio has a good hack and fouls it back 1-1.
Craig got a pitch that he could get up in the air. That was a fastball that stayed up. Sadowski tried to sink it to get the ground ball. With the infield in, obviously Sadowski's trying to get the ground ball, but that was a mistake, and Biggio missed it.
Spires a lefty on deck. We could see Embry if Sadowski can get Biggio here. Ground ball up the middle. Bell's got it. He's going to have to go to first base, and that was a delayed break by Osmus, but he seemed to read it fairly well. And then Bell looked, but then had to go to first base. The Astros take the lead at 8-7.
Well, Brad Osmus is a very good runner. Even though he's a catcher, he's a good base stealer and a good runner. He reads this ball. He sees Bell breaking to his left, and it'd be a tough throw for Jay, and Brad scores. Watch Brad Osmus at third base. He's reading the play. He's not going on contact. Once he sees Bell going to his left, he breaks for home, and Jay wasn't able to recover. And he had to go to third base or first base.
So Osmus for the double. Barry gets him to third on the fly ball out, and Biggio shatters his bat but hits it in the right place to get the run in. Here's Bill Spires. He looks at strike 1. So the Astros have come all the way back from a 7-1 deficit to take the lead here in the 8th.
Jay's momentum carried him to the left side. He just couldn't spin around to throw a strike home, and he lets it take the out at first base. That was not the contact play. A lot of times with 1 out, you put the contact play on, and what that is the runner has to break as soon as the hitter makes contact, no matter where the ball is, and then read the ball. But that was not that particular play.
Spires takes the ball, 1-2.
The third base coach will tell the runner there with 1 out in that situation is either you're going on contact or you read the play. It's a high chopper, slow roller, you can score or make it go through the infield. Runner's judgment. Brad Osmus is a very good base runner.
2 balls and 2 strikes. Yeah, just think about how many guys, if the catcher had a lead double, they would pinch run for it.
Well, he's a good base stealer. He's 6 out of 9. We've already touched on that, but he's a good base stealer. He runs very, very, very well.
It's another reason that Larry Dierker and the Astros feel they can carry 5 bench players and 12 pitchers, because they don't pinch hit an awful lot. They don't have to pinch run. Fly ball to left. This should do it as DeLucci wraps it up. But a double and a bounce out produced a run. Osmus scores the go-ahead tally. We go to the bottom of the 8th. Houston by 1. Now it's time for our Western Union game summary. Houston rallied from a 7-1 deficit. Mike Hampton was not sharp, but the Astros have gotten him off the deck. Off the hook. Diamondbacks 5 runs in the second, 3 home runs in the game, but the Astros clawed back to take an 8-7 lead as we go to the bottom of the 8th. Moises Alou had a home run to tie it in the 7th. And Craig Biggio hit a weak ground ball that scored Brad Osmus to give him a lead. Doug Henry is the new pitcher. He has been the primary setup man for the Astros, and he'll go after a pinch hitter, Andy Fox, who will lead off.
Doug Henry, good fastball in the low 90s, hard slider, also throws a split-fingered fastball.
1 ball, no strikes. Fox coming over from the Yankees early in the season. The trade that sent Todd Erdos and Marty Jansen, a couple of pitchers, to New York. A strike, 1-1. Astros also bolstered their bullpen core by getting Jay Powell from the Florida Marlins right at the All-Star break in exchange for catching prospect Ramon Castro. So with Henry and Powell and Wagner to close from the left side, they're in pretty good shape at this point. But right now as Andy Fox opens with a single in right center field. Let's go to Linda Cohn at our ESPN studios.
Dave, Terry Steinbach was the tying run at the plate, but he grounds into a force out, and Seattle hangs on to win 4-1. J.D. Moyer the victory, Mike Timlin the save. Griffey 0 for 4.
So the Diamondbacks get their lead man on here in the bottom half of the 8th inning, and the top of the order with Devon White. See the runs numbers on the evening. He singled back in the first. Remember that play Bill Spires made back in the second inning with the bases loaded that temporarily halted the hemorrhaging for Hampton. Drive to fairly deep center field, but Carl Everett got a good jump, and that's out number 1 here in the bottom of the 8th inning. Right-hander Greg Olson. He is the closer of the Diamondbacks, but right now Buck Showalter doesn't want to see this lead get any worse than it is, so he starts going, and Diamondbacks can tie or go ahead. He will be in. Jay Powell and Billy Wagner throwing for Houston. Wagner came in last night and worked an inning and a third.
Larry Dierker said he will use Billy Wagner tonight in the 8th inning again. They do have an off day tomorrow, and Wagner will be ready for probably Travis Lee.
Bell swings and misses. Jay is homered, doubled, and line to right in 4 trips.
Now, it's not a surprise down 8-7 in the 8th inning that Buck Showalter let Devon White swing the bat, try to win the game. He saw what happened already. He had a 7-1 lead. That didn't work, so he's trying to win the game. He's not playing for a tie, even at home.
Outside to Bell. Well, one of the things about Showalter when he managed in the American League, very few sacrifice bunts, very few hit and runs, very few stolen bases. It's kind of the Earl Weaver variety. I don't want to give up any outs. I get 27, and I'm not going to give any of them out.
And he's got his 3 veteran guys. Devon White just flew out. He's got Jay Bell and Matt Williams and his great young star Travis Lee. So they're going to try to win the ball game here. They're not playing for a tie.
2 balls and a strike to Bell. Matt Williams, who had a critical error, stands on deck.
And I agree with that philosophy. When you're in last place, as far back as they are, you got nothing to lose by going for it. Good hole on the right side, so you let Devon White swing and flew out.
Bell, slow tapper foul left side. 2-2.
Andy Fox has speed anyway. He can steal a base if they want to get that runner in scoring position. Pretty good base stealer. He's only got 2 on the season, but he's a pretty good base stealer. He can steal 20, 25 bases. He has done that in the minor leagues.
Fox has played some second, some outfield. He's been pretty much relegated to the outfield with Clausen coming in and splits time with Benitez in right field. 2-2. Full count. Doug Henry pitched for the Giants last year. He's done a great job for Houston this year. Now, if you're Larry Dierker, you've seen your team battle back and take the lead in this game, and you do not want to let it get away.
And for Buck Showalter, I think he's got to put Andy Fox in motion right now. 3-2, 1 out.
He does. The pitch to Bell is ripped to center field. Here comes Everett, and he's got it. Fox is going to be double off first base if the throw is even close, and it is a double play. So Andy Fox didn't read it very well, and Carl Everett came on and grabbed it and doubles off Andy Fox. So Fox may have been faked out by the infielders. Astros by 1. Astros get a run in the top of the 8th and get a double play in the bottom half to blunt a rally. Andy Fox doubled off first.
Andy Fox takes 1, 2, 3.5, looks in like he should. He reads the ball. He's looking at center field, and now he's looking at Biggio. He's totally confused. He knows the ball's in the air, but I think Biggio did a good enough job of faking him. He didn't know what he saw. He did the right thing initially, looking in after 2.5 steps to pick up the fly to the ball, and then he really just misread that ball, Dave, all the way.
So Carl Everett comes in and grabs it and doubles off Fox at first base. Greg Olson on for his 34th trip.
I think he looked up at center field. He knew where the ball was. Then he saw Biggio, thinking, what's he doing? Is the ball on the ground? And by that time, he was around second base, and he was totally confused.
Derek Bell, the leadoff, made a couple of good defensive plays in the 7th inning. Well, the Astro outfielders have been flashing the leather the last couple of innings. Foul ball off his foot. No balls and a strike.
Well, Greg Olson has become the closer for the Diamondbacks. Just saw a 71-mile-an-hour overhand curveball. Still got a fastball that's in the low 90s. Really come back from arm injuries. And he really pitched well, extremely well this year. And he's also mixes in a pretty good changeup. It'll throw to the left-handed hitters.
Pitch to Bell. Study in perseverance. We mentioned that Greg Olson was the 2nd pick in the nation back in 1988. He had 160 saves his first 5 years. Then the dreaded Tommy John ligament surgery, and he's been battling back. He's been with about 6 different organizations trying to find a way back to the big leagues, and he impressed the Diamondback folks enough that he got a shot, and he's been one of their more effective guys out of the pen. 1-2 to Bell.
Pretty good fastball, 89 miles an hour. His out pitch normally is that overhand curveball. He's got a straight over the top power curveball. Breaks straight down.
Did he go? Nope. 2-2, says Angel Hernandez. Probably the first thing that Larry Dierker's agreed with Angel on all week.
On the side, see if Derek Bell crossed the plane. Yes, he did. Should have been strike 3.
So the umpires in the stands were right.
Yes, they were.
Hernandez.
Of course, Larry Dierker has not had a lot of fun with Hernandez this week.
Got booted on Monday. Bell, fly ball left center, should be playable. Devon White lopes over. He has it for the first out. The NFL on ESPN and ABC. NFL is primetime, exclusively on ESPN and ABC this fall. Sunday Night Football on ESPN. Live coverage begins at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific. All 16 Sundays. It all starts on September 6th. Paul McGuire joins Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann at the booth. And Monday Night Football on ABC has a new time. Live coverage begins at 8 Eastern. Boomer Esiason will team up with Al Michaels and Dan Dierdorf starting September 7th. Bottom line is, folks, Sunday and Monday football, ESPN on Sunday night, ABC Monday Night Football, and new start times this year, 8:15 on Sunday and 8 o'clock on Monday. Bagwell's hit the ball hard a couple of times. Matt Williams robbed him his last time up. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Back-to-back curveballs by Olson to Bagwell. 76 and 79 miles an hour. Left-handed hitters this year are only hitting 139 off of Greg Olson. 10 for 72.
Bagwell fouls it off. 1-2.
Right-handers, 323. Giving up 3 home runs, all 3 to right-handed hitters. Largely because he throws that changeup to left-handed hitters.
Moises Alou has had a big evening, a triple, a home run, and also a hit by pitch in the middle of that 5-run 6th inning when the Astros got back in this game. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Jeff Bagwell. It works for him, but I don't think most batting coaches would advocate that stance.
Well, he's got strong legs and a wide stance, but you can watch his hips. He really gets those hips going first, then his hands come through the ball. He really gets a lot of movement, gets those hips going. They really explode.
Got him. So Bagwell 0 for 5. Back in the 7th inning with the Diamondbacks leading 7-6. Moises Alou walked to the plate and took a curveball or fastball from Clint Sadowski and tied the game. Home run number 22 on the season. The Astros added a run in the 8th, and they lead 8-7. Field. Here comes Benitez, and he's got it for the out. The Diamondbacks are 0-54 when they trail after 8. They will try to break that spell in the bottom of the 9th. Larry Dierker's Astros have a 1-run lead as they go to the bottom half of the 9th inning. Coming up next on SportsCenter with Rich Eisen and Stuart Scott, Oral Hershiser returns to Los Angeles. Dave Steve, 40 years old, gets a start with the Jays, and Diamond Notes with Peter Gammons coming up next on ESPN.
Well, Billy Wagner going to see a 97, 98, maybe even at times 100-mile-an-hour fastball when he gets going. But he averages 96, 97. Nothing usually below that. He'll mix in what is now a slider. Larry Dierker has worked with him on a slider. Used to throw a curveball, but they've got him throwing more sliders now, but not too many. He's going to be mostly power fastball. Occasionally he'll throw a changeup. See what his velocity is tonight.
Matt Williams leads off. Fly ball right field side, curving towards foul territory. Long run for Bagwell, but he can't get there.
First pitch. I think he's warm, 98 miles an hour, right out of the chute.
Excellent fastball hitter against a flamethrower.
Now, Billy Wagner has 22 saves. He has blown 2. Back in April, Raul Mondesi hit a fastball out of the ballpark, 2-run home run to beat him. And a couple of weeks ago, Mark McGwire. Actually, last Saturday. Seems like a couple of weeks ago.
The ball went for a couple of weeks.
Took the plane ride.
Foul 0-2.
Wow.
Remember, you can see Mark McGwire this Sunday as the Dodgers visit St. Louis on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Well, Matt Williams had a critical error in that 5-run 6th inning when Houston got back in the game. He's been trying to make up for that all night.
Billy Wagner has given up 3 home runs. The 3rd home run that did not cost him the game or did not blow a save for him was Tony Batista of Arizona.
Foul upstairs, and the count stays 0-2.
98, 97, 98.
A year ago, Wagner early in the season had the great curveball to go with the fastball, but later on, he just couldn't throw it for a strike.
That's exactly why they've worked more sliders into his repertoire. Got away from the curveball a little bit.
Fastball, Williams late. Mike
not much
struggled.
I'm sorry, Dave. Not much guesswork. I was watching Osmus. He's just sitting down the middle and putting the glove up.
Mike Hampton struggled, but the Astros bullpen, Scott Ellerton, Trevor Miller, Doug Henry have come in to do the job to set it up for Billy Wagner. Flared out to left center field. This is in the Bermuda Triangle, and a lead single for Matt Williams.
Fastball in. Osma sets up inside. The ball gets in on the hands of Matt Williams. The big swing, but he dumps it into left field between Alou and Everett.
So Travis Lee will hit. Kelly Stinnett is on deck. And then Yamil Benitez. Benitez already has a game-winning homer this year. Lee homered earlier tonight. 1 ball, no strikes. I mentioned the Diamondbacks have not had a comeback win all year. Two balls and no strikes. Once again, Showalter not showing bunt with his cleanup hitter up this time. Kelly Stinnett, who has a long home run tonight, is on deck. Fastball strike, 2-1.
Question may be, do you pinch run for Matt Williams? No, he's a pretty good runner. 2 out of 3 stolen bases. Buck doesn't run anywhere.
Flared foul left field side. Spires won't get there, but he gets a good effort.
And Matt's a pretty good base runner. He can get first or third on a base hit. They really don't have any Blazers on the bench. And remember, Tony, but good effort going away toward the fence. Little slide. Ball hits the fence in the air.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Travis Lee.
I'm going to say Tony Batista has a little speed, but he's on the bench, but he's a good right-handed bat. And once again, he has hit a home run off of Billy Wagner. He came in last night for an at-bat against Billy Wagner. So I'm sure Buck Showalter wants to save Batista.
Got him with a high fastball. So Travis Lee down on strikes. So Kelly Stinnett will step in earlier tonight against Mike Hampton. He drilled one deep to left field. That was his 8th of the year. So Stinnett will bat against Wagner. Ricocheted all the way into foul territory, but that ball has hit him in the face. I've already seen that happen to Mike Messina. Willie Blair, one of the Diamondback pitchers, got drilled in the jaw last year by Julio Franco. Looking at Billy Wagner right now. He certainly seems to be conscious. Maybe trying to collect his thoughts here.
Like it hit him on the left side of the face, Dave.
Well, Kelly Stinnett wanted to get a hit, but that isn't exactly what he had in mind.
Maybe the left side of the head. With his delivery being left-handed and his finish, ball was hit to his bare hand side, not the glove side.
Matt Williams, one of the Diamondback players in, showing certainly concern. Sure, that's the team physician of the Diamondbacks out there right now.
Here's the pitch by Billy Wagner. And that gets inside the ball. He hits it pretty well. Billy tries to get the glove up. Don't know if it just tipped the glove. I think it got him on the side of the head. No, he didn't get any glove on it at all. Got him on the side of the head.
Well, I'm sure they're going to, even if Billy says he's okay, I'm sure they're going to take every precaution possible. Buck Showalter obviously concerned.
It's a scary thing. It's only 60 feet 6 inches from the mound to home plate. The guy throwing 98 miles an hour. You got to realize the ball's coming back faster than that. When the batter swings a bat and hits a ball that has that much velocity, it comes back sometimes at 110, 115 miles an hour. By the time he releases the ball, he's not 60 feet from home plate. He may be 52, 53 feet, and you just don't have time to react. And unfortunately, it was not to his glove side, so he couldn't get a glove on the ball.
The ball bounced almost all the way over in the Diamondbacks dugout. Obviously concern all around. Well, we've seen it in slow motion. Now we'll take a look at real speed.
I mean, you just don't have time to react.
No.
If you can hit a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, you've got to have pretty good bat speed, and Stinnett did on that particular swing.
You know, the other thing, Kevin, I mean, you know, they keep talking about that aluminum bat.
Forget it.
Gets back even quicker there.
Forget it.
So I'm sure Billy Wagner is going to be taken off and will go for examination. Vehicle in. He certainly appears to be conscious. That's a good sign.
Yeah, it is.
And he was chewing gum. I'd say that's a fairly good sign. But he certainly appeared to be conscious throughout most of it. Astros will be winging back to Houston tonight, but I don't think Mr. Wagner will be on that flight. They'll take him for observation at the local hospital here. So concern in both dugouts. This is just something you don't want to see. We've just seen so much of it the last couple of years, Kevin. I mean, again, we talked about Messina. We talked about Willie Blair. You know, Norm Charlton last year got hit right in the nose. It is so tough, especially power pitchers. They have a tendency to fall off just a little bit to the side of the mound because they put so much effort into the deliveries that it's very difficult for them to get their body in fielding position.
You're absolutely right. People say, well, how come he's not in good fielding position? When you use the power in your legs, which Billy Wagner has, that's where he gets his arm speed from. You're going to finish falling off the mound. And that's what happened right there. And he couldn't and didn't have time to react. He did the best he could, try to get his glove up
for years
to knock the ball away. We couldn't do it.
For years, we heard so much about the brilliant young left-hander for Cleveland, Herb Score, and how his career was ruined when Gil McDougall's line drive hit him in, I believe, 1954 or circa 54. It might have been 55 or 56. But, you know, most of the guys have been able to come back and pitch effectively afterwards. But, you know, right now, the concern is for Billy's health.
Any type of head injury, it looks like they're going to put him on a stretcher. Any type of head injury, no matter what the player says, you don't want to take chances and have a guy stand up and walk off, even if you could. So this is a precaution. Hopefully that's all it is.
So I'm sure Jay Powell will be the next pitcher, and he'll be given, of course, all the time he needs to warm up. But this has put a damper on this evening, even if the Astros should hold on and win. So Wagner will go for examination. So the Astros will be calling on a new pitcher, and while he comes in, we will step away. Astros scored a run in the 8th inning to take a lead, but their closer, Billy Wagner, has been literally knocked out of the game with a shot in the head, but they lead 8-7. Coming up next on SportsCenter, Rich Eisen and Stuart Scott will tell you about Oral Hershiser's return to L.A., Dave Steve gets a start for the Blue Jays, and Peter Gammons will have Diamond Notes. So Jay Powell just acquired from the Florida Marlins around the All-Star break for catching prospect Ramon Castro. Powell got the win in Game 7 of the World Series last year against the Cleveland Indians. A hard thrower, and he comes on.
Jay Powell's got a power fastball in the low 90s. Throws a hard slider. Toughest assignment right now is not really facing the hitter. It's to hope that Billy Wagner's okay. And saw the concern of Biggio, Matt Williams, every player out there. Two guys were talking about it. Now their concentration has to be on trying to get the hitter out.
Well, Matt Williams is second. Kelly Stinnett is at first base. And the hitter will be Kareem Garcia. Who has actually hit left-handers better than he has right-handers, but he'll come on for Buck Showalter with 1 out in the bottom of the 9th. Showalter and Willie Durker is going to look over the lineup sheet to see what other moves might be made. He has a left-hander, Mike McNulty, throwing in the bullpen. Garcia after the slider, 1 strike. Came in the expansion draft from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Diamondbacks hope to market him here because he is from Mexico and there's a large Mexican population in the Phoenix area. But he has struggled in his first year. One ball and 1 strike. If we get an update on Billy Wagner, we will pass it along.
One of the problems that Kareem Garcia has had is his lack of discipline at the plate. He's only walked 9 times all year in 161 at-bats. He's struck out 37. So he's pretty much a free swinger.
Ball fouled off, 1-2. David DeLucci is in the on-deck circle.
You like to have that walk-to-strikeout ratio as a hitter about 1-to-1. And when you learn to do that, you're going to have better pitches to hit, better eye at the plate. You're going to see your batting average improve. He's only hitting .211. He's already swung at a couple of marginal pitches in this at-bat.
2 balls and 2 strikes.
The idea as a pitcher is that you don't really have to throw him a strike to get him out. 2-2. Throw one on the corner, maybe with a little movement. Get him to chase something out of his zone.
A lot of things going through that man's mind right now. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Garcia. Got him. Nope, foul ball just off the glove of Brad Osmus.
The slider in on the hands. It stayed up.
Working. DeLucci is a left-handed batter, but Buck Showalter has a couple of right-handed batters on the bench. And remember, DeLucci hits left-handers equally as well as right-handers. Full count to Garcia. Williams at second. Stinnett at first, 1 out.
I don't think Buck will put him in motion.
No, not with a propensity for striking out. I agree with you. Ground ball right side. Off Biggio's glove. This is going to tie it up. Garcia heads to second. Over to third goes Stinnett. And we're tied at 8. Garcia. It's a hard ground ball to the right side that just went off Biggio's glove. 1 run would have scored anyway, but with the ball bouncing off the glove, that allowed a double. Garcia going all the way to second with the winning run. Stinnett going to third, and Durker wants the left-hander. I think, nope, he's calling Biggio in for a conference.
Here's the 3-2 pitch to Garcia. The fastball down out of the zone. We talked about Garcia being a 3-swinger. He swung at ball 4, but this time gets fortunate. Gets the ball in the right spot to the left of Biggio, just off his glove for the game-tying single.
Well, we mentioned the Diamondbacks had not rallied from a deficit after 8 innings all year. They're trying to put the first into their column tonight. What do? Do you walk DeLucci or load him up? Oh, yeah, it looks like they're going to. So they'll go after the right-hander Clausen unless Showalter decides to go to either the left-handed George Fabregas or Brent Brady.
Well, I think Showalter will let Clausen swing the bat. This is a guy they think is their future, at least somewhere in the infield. They've talked about shortstop down the road, but at least for now it's second base. So I think they'll go all the way with Clausen.
Here's ball 3 wide.
He's walking the left-hander to get to the right-hander. I don't think Buck will counter here. I think he's got a better hitter in Clausen than he does on the bench.
So DeLucci gets the intentional walk. And Clausen up. Only Diamondback starter without a hit tonight. Sports Center coming up next. Rich Eisen and Stuart Scott. Comes out, and you go back to the other thing we talked about, Kevin. Now you got Kelly Stinnett at third base, not a guy with great speed, but again, no pinch runner.
Infield is in. Outfield has to play shallow.
Swing and miss by Clausen. No balls and a strike. And a sacrifice fly will win the game anyway, so the outfield plays shallow as well.
Good hard slider right there.
Stinnett at third. He's the winning run. A ball and a strike.
Another slider. Look at the outfield. Has to play shallow. Anything deeper than that is going to score the run anyway. What normally would drop in as a single will be caught, and they'd have a chance to throw Stinnett out at home plate.
2 balls and a strike. Billy Wagner was trying to close it out, but he was hitting the side of the head by a line drive off the bat of Kelly Stinnett and was wheeled off. I'm sure to go for observation. 2 balls and a strike. Ground ball to third. Spires comes home for 1. They go back to first, not in time. Inning still alive. But Stinnett forced it home 5-2. The throw back to first, not in time. And now George Fabregas will be the pinch hitter.
It's a good slider down and away. Gets Clausen out on the front foot. Rolls over it to the left side on a 1-hop actually. Strike thrown to home plate by Billy Spires. Osmus just missed doubling up Clausen by about a half a step. Nice play by Billy Spires and a very good pitch
by Jay Powell.
Well, on a night when the Astros began with 7 pitchers in their bullpen, only Mike Magnante and C.J. Nitkowski remain. 2 left-handers, and Burker will stay with Powell.
It's a good thing now that Burker let Mike Hampton go as far as he did. Even though he gave up 5 runs in the second inning, Larry let him go a couple of more innings after that.
So Fabregas, the hitter. He missed 6 weeks with a bad ankle, just rounding back into form now. 1 ball, no strikes.
George is a spray hitter. He'll usually take a 93, 94 fastball the other way into left center. Does not have a lot of power. They do not need a home run. They need a base hit. And he can go with the pitch.
A strike on the corner, and Fabregas can't believe it. 1-1.
We got a little help on that one. This ball looked down and away. Pretty good movement. But Fabregas gets called for the strike.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Osmus backhanded that. Really could have turned the glove over the other way to make that pitch look a little bit better. Give a better presentation to the umpire.
Breaking ball, swung on and missed. 1-2. Defense back to normal with 2 outs. They play Fabregas to swing late as Carl Everett shades towards left center, and Derek Bell gives up the right field line. To extra innings. Fabregas strikes out with the bases loaded. So Powell gets out of it. Everett, Gutierrez, and Osmus do as we go to the 10th.
Top 6, 7-4 Arizona. Bases loaded, 2 outs. Billy Spires hits one to right off Andy Bennis. Brad Osmus and J.R. Phillips score a 5-run 6 for the Stros. Houston down just 7-6. Top 7 still 7-6. Moises Alou hits it deep to left. Alou's 22nd of the year ties the game at 7. Bottom 9, Houston up 8-7. Kelly Stinnett, look out! Ouch. Off of Billy Wagner's face. Wagner in obvious pain and on the ground. Take another look as he had no time to react at all. He goes down to the ground. Stinnett is concerned. Alou's in disbelief. Buck Showalter also concerned. Wagner never lost consciousness. He was taken off the stretcher to a local hospital for more tests. The good news is all vital signs were okay. Still bottom 9, Kareem Garcia facing Jay Powell. And Garcia grounds one off Craig Biggio's glove. Matt Williams scores, and that ties the game at 8. Bottom 11th, 1st and 2nd, 2 outs. And Danny Clausen hits one deep to right center. Past the diving Carl Everett. Stinnett scores. It's the game winner. Arizona wins 9-8. Houston's lost 5 of 6. They scored 5 runs in the 6th. It's the first win ever for Arizona when trailing after 8 innings. But once again, everyone concerned about Billy Wagner, who never lost consciousness, and his vital signs were okay, but once again taken to a local hospital for more tests.